push on to this point. But now there's only 8 spots available that will take them to grand finals. This is going to be pretty crazy, and who else to break it all down for you than these incredible friends of ours? We've got Shy Wager, we've got Reese. Guys, hype levels, check.
Maximum already. Not sure they're going to get even higher, Zeke, Reese, but today, the Heats, the grand finals, this end of stage of this season is going to be phenomenal.
I'm ultra maximum. I've reached new levels of hype above maximum hype. I'm ultra hyped right now. 4 days, all custom stage games. I am so excited to see where these lead. They're going to be very, very tense, trying to get top 8 in EU. So I'm very, very much so looking forward to it.
4 days of continuous Fortnite action. We've got heats, we've got grand finals, and we've got a wild card match. And on top of that, we'll have crowned FNCS champions. There's a lot to talk about that. We'll get into games in just a second, but first let's talk about the broadcast and what you guys at home can expect as viewers. You know, we'll be here at EU, there will be a break, and then later on we'll be back for NA East. We came from the qualifiers, round 3, and now we find ourselves in heats. We've got 2 days of competition, 6 games today, another 6 tomorrow, and on your screen you can see it's only the top 8 trios that advance, but the 9th through 16th place trios, they're going into the wild card match. Shy, one last chance.
One last chance and only one special rule, which is whoever wins this match gets to move forward and go to the grand finals. It's one game, one winner. Doesn't matter the amount of eliminations you have to win, and then you move on to those grands, which are over 2 days, 6 games each, and after that we'll have our trios FNCS champion.
There's so much that comes along with that. The prize money, the clout, and of course, the coveted Axe of Champions, a trophy to display to the world, saying we are champions of the Fortnite Champion Series. We do move on, though. We've got that format. The Victory Royale, we're 25 points. You can see the placement as far out as 17th with 1 point. Now, do keep in mind, we have 33 trios playing, so over just about half have to fall before we can start seeing placement points divvied out. And don't forget, every elimination is worth 1 point. Reese, we've seen the entire spectrum. We've seen players play super heavy on placement. We've seen players slay out. We've seen players fall in the middle, balancing both. I think Heats is going to show us maybe something new, or maybe just provide us with skill that we've not yet seen.
Maybe. But, you know, I feel like we've had 3 weeks of qualifiers, and we've watched EU and we've watched NA East. We've seen people do it kind of all. You know, in Brazil, we've seen people pick up tons of Victory Royales, 11 out of 12, which is obviously crazy. We've seen people not get any Victory Royales, but still win, like week 1 in EU. In NA East, we've seen people get tons of Victory Royales, but not actually win. So, you know, we've seen a lot of different things, and I'm just excited to honestly see how it all plays out.
Dude, there's going to be so much unfolding here. And do keep in mind, we've got 4 heats all happening at the same time that we'll be keeping track of. Now, do look on your screen right now. We have your prize pool for the finals. It is a breakdown. You can see a lot of those trios looking to hit as high as possible. That's a lot of prize money. It's absolutely insane. Not bad for a couple weeks of Fortnite. I mean, that's what you like to see. Now, dudes, I mean, obviously, there's going to be lots to talk about. We do have 2 regions to talk about for 4 days straight. A lot of these trios, if these viewers have been following, they already have some of their favorites. We'll be diving into some that they might need to keep their eyes on. But real quick, what I'd like to do is actually check in on these other regions. We have OCE, Asia, and EMEA that we'd like to take a look in. Now, do keep in mind, for them, it is the top 16 trios that are making on to grand finals, and they only have 2 heats happening at the same time. Coming in on that first spot for the first day, we have Jinx, Alec, and Worthy, starting at 142 points.
Yeah, and it goes kind of down all the way to 96, so you'll see right now between 1st and 5th place, there's a little bit of a gap, but it's a 2-day competition, and these guys can easily catch up.
And Jinx, Alec, Worthy, the guys at the top, names that you should know if you're in the OCE scene. Should be surprised at knowing that they're up on the top. They won up in Qualifier 1 by a dominant fashion. Didn't do as good in 2 and 3, but here they're already dominating in their heats.
Yep, all the way there at 10th place. We have Nubatoon, Cypher, and Geese. These guys are usually near that top spot. We'll see how they bring it back in day number 2. But for heat number 2 in OCE, there's another team that's in first place, Reese.
Yeah, we got Muzz, Radius, and Speedy picking up a single victory royale with 47 eliminations. So clearly doing a very, very good job of picking eliminations, picking up fights, doing a ton of different things to get themselves up onto the top of that leaderboard above everyone else by 10 points.
Yeah, on this back page too, we have Jalen, Parpy, and Zore. These guys have one win as well for them. Basil, Vortex, and Jace also have a win. These guys are going to be 6th and 8th place, but that is kind of the 2 pages of 2 heats of OCE.
Now we're going to rotate on over to Asia. Reese, I did not mean to cut you off there. I'll let you finish out your point.
I was just going to say, over in Asia, our guys in first here are the guys who won up in week 3 already. So 2 victory rounds coming very, very strong for them. However, tied up at first place here. So, you know, they've got a little bit more victory rounds, but Les, S, and Hamopy in 2nd place here have clearly done a really good job being consistent on their placement through all 6 games today.
And that point gap is still there from 1st to 5th, from 6th all the way to 10th. It's kind of closer, but still almost a 30-point differential. Actually, a little bit even more between Q-Jack's trio and then Suyu all the way there in number 10. We also have a win on this page in 9th place with Mr. and his trio. 61 points overall, 20 elims. Q-Jack, Wild Out, and Nator, though, these guys lead the pack with 34 eliminations at 6th place.
Yeah, and moving over to Heat 2, Day 1, we have Rainy, Usia, and Mia up in 1st place right now. 2 victory royales, 47 eliminations, the same as our Heat 2 from OCE as well. So these guys have taken a huge lead, 39 points ahead of 2nd right now, and are in very, very strong place to qualify all the way through into Grand Finals already.
Yeah, and point-wise, both heats kind of look very, very similar. The 6th to 10th place slots over here in heat number 2, though, look a little bit closer with maybe just an 11-point difference between 6th and 10th. Once again, 2 wins on this page, so we're seeing patterns in both Asia and OCE between the heats that are very, very similar, almost actually the same.
Yeah, it's almost like one of these teams is kind of coming out that isn't as consistent overall and just, you know, playing very, very well in a single match, getting that victory royale. And that's kind of putting them up into the 6th to 10th place slot, but they're obviously not really able to capitalize that as well in the other games.
Yep, and then all the way there over at Middle East, we have a little bit more of an even spread on heat number 1. No one really with 2 victory royales, 1 per all the top 3. And then we still have that same 133 to 144 point gap all the way down to 86 for the 5th place team.
Yeah, and they got 52 eliminations up in 1st place right now, which is the most from any of the teams that we've just seen across some of these smaller regions. So this team, extremely aggressive, very, very much so going for those eliminations the early, mid, and late game very efficiently.
And although we are speeding through these all, you know, standings results, do not ignore Speedy all the way in 6th place there with his trio. 86 points right now, right on that gap for top 5. Still, though, for ME, that was just heat 1. We have another whole heat. Remember, 2 heats for these regions. The top 16 end up moving on. And in heat number 2, we have Hell on Steam, Fantumi, and then Fares. We know these guys, they're usually in that top 3, top 5, but this time in the heats, they're number 1.
Yeah, great performance coming out of them today already. You know, 23 points ahead of 2nd place. And then, you know, that consistent placement over and over again. 2 victory royales, 40 eliminations. Clearly, these guys have been getting up into that top 5 over and over again. Not being super aggressive, only having the 40 eliminations, but still way ahead of all of the other players down below.
And this is the closest heats kind of gets so far from all the regions we've seen. Middle East heat number 2, 6th to 10th place. What a small difference in points, 70 point tied for 8th and 9th. It could be anyone's game, but we have a whole other day to go for all these heats in both ME, Asia, and OCE.
Guys, there's so much happening. This is like my favorite time when we're in and close to grand finals because, you know, everything takes it up that additional notch. Now, of course, we kind of have to turn our attention back to EU because that's what we're really focused on right now. We've seen a lot of these trios perform and show up, especially when their backs were against the wall. On other times, we've seen them when they haven't had the best starting day. On day number 2, they bring it. So why don't we kind of take a look at some trios that we probably want to keep our eyes on as we're watching some of these heats.
Absolutely. Let's focus on the top 4 for just heat number 1, which we will be watching today in EU. And it starts with Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson.
Everyone knows them. Ooh, what a nice shot from Mitra there. Everyone knows them. This team dropping down at Stark seems like they're going to be uncontested today. So they've had a really dominant performance of... Oh, Mongrel putting them in the Taj there. They've had a really dominant performance when they're contested and uncontested. So I'm very, very interested to see how they're going to play out today.
Yeah, this was one of their wins all the way over in the week number 3 qual. But past that, this heat has some big names, a lot more too, with Anas, Flick, and the best sniper in the world, Thomas HD. They also had a nice big win there in that, I think, 2nd week or 3rd week qualifier, and they just wrapped up the lobby holding height so perfectly.
Yeah, and if we remember back to week 2, Thomas HD had that insane solo clutch where he was, I think, 27th as a solo and managed to win the entire game out from that, and that really propelled them in the leaderboards that day. That was something very impressive.
Was very unique too, just like this next trio we're going to be looking at with Nikov, Blaster, and Alpha. These guys always have a different way of winning games or ending up just surviving overall, and because of that, it puts them in that top 4 upper echelon of teams to watch in this heat.
Yeah, no one's really talking about them as much when you're talking about the rankings of teams, but these guys have had multiple top 15s within each of the qualifiers so far, so playing very well.
Yeah, past that too, we have Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6. I think one of the most consistent teams coming in overall into Europe, and just the game style, the way they play, the way they make end game from low ground, sometimes undetected. That was just 4 teams, though. We have a whole slew of 33 to watch today just on broadcast with 1 heat. But Zeke, it's 4 heats going on at the exact same time.
That's right. We'll be checking in with all those other heats as the kind of days progress. Now, we will go ahead and shift gears a little bit. We've got to talk predictions. We've been doing this in the last 4 weeks of competition. You guys have selected which trios you think will come out on top at the end of the heats. So let's talk through this. Wow. Talk through this together. Reese, you were first pick, so tell us your prediction.
We've just seen a little preview of them. Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. Again, these guys have been consistently getting into the round 3s and dominating. They've had multiple places where they are in that top 15. So far, the most consistent team in this heat by far. And let's be real, they're just awesome. They're going to do great.
I'll actually take a page out of your book, Reese. Let's do a Reese breakdown for Benji, Savage, and Lechi, which is my pick. They've been consistently contested off spawn in the heats in practice, but now for the first time they are free in this heat. Hopefully, I see on paper at least, or on the socials, and if that's the case, if we have some of the best players on Doom's domain, you saw it happen in Brazil, you saw it happen in NA East, you can expect wins, you can expect possibly 2 a first place.
I'm not going to do that for Sundown and Sancho. Don't worry, guys. I got you covered. Sundown went with Flick, Anas, and Thomas HD. Reese, you did kind of mention that Thomas had that pop-off performance, being by himself. This trio has proven time and again they have the mechanical prowess to make it to the end games, secure victory royales, and slay out. They are so adaptable. And finally, we round out with Sancho, who went with Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6. Another trio that we do want to be keeping our eyes upon. I mean, at this point, it's basically a who's who, right? Because we went from these open rounds where anyone could compete, and now we're refining the pool of players to being that top 1%. And this pool is going to get even smaller when we do make it to grand final. So you're looking around, and it's like you can just pick any trio, just like, yeah, no, that trio's awesome. Oh, that trio's sick. Wait, I forgot about those guys. Like, there's just so much total potential, so much power when we're talking about these places, these trios, these POIs that they're going to be contesting or uncontesting, right? There's a lot that we will be kind of breaking down over the next 4 days of Fortnite. So if you guys at home want to tune in, don't forget, we're here same time, same place for the next 4 days. That's right, 4 days of competition. Come hang out with us, watch the games, tweet at us, tweet at the players. Make sure you follow them. Follow these guys, they're incredible. And of course, we'll have action in just a moment. Guys, I could not be more excited. I think by the end of this, like, I'll probably have lost my voice because you guys know I tend to get pretty hyped. I mean, we'll see. I hope not. But yeah, that being said, that pretty much wraps it up from here at the desk for now. What we're going to do is send it over to our casters. Who better to bring you the action than Sundown and Sancho West? Say hello, friends.
And gentlemen, boys and girls, Jonesies, Bonesies, he, she's, theys, thems, and everyone in between, welcome to day 1 of the FNCS Grand Finals. My name's Sundown.
And I am Sancho West, and we are excited to bring you all the action. Like Zeke said, 4 days of intense competition, and we're going to see who's going to be able to walk away to call themselves the Trio Grand Champion and have that Axe of Champions. Now, I got to say, Sundown, it would be cool. It's always cool just to have anything stand out in the Fortnite world, and the Axe of Champions is probably by far the coolest pickaxe of them all.
You know, it's always scary when somebody's on your wall with one of those axes, but we don't have to wait any longer. Game 1 underway. Don't forget, if you were watching over the course of this season, the format for the heats is the same for the round 3. We'll have 6 matches today, then we'll go on a little bit of a break, then we'll have 6 matches for NA East, and then tomorrow we will be back with the second half of those same matches. So 12 games for these teams. And what's on the line? Everyone's looking for that top 8 spot, a ticket to the dance in the grand finals, that opportunity to walk away. And right now, Sancho, we get a look at that overhead map, and it seems like we get a decent amount of spread. I'm only seeing 1 contestant right now.
Yeah, and that's going to be the story. And it's interesting. We've been seen throughout the entire qualifiers, the contention you've seen in sweaty sands for the first time. That's usually carefree. But now we're in a carefree land here of Doom's Domain. Chill vibes here. Benji vibing out. Savage vibing out, and Lechi vibing out.
That's a much different vibe than they're used to before. We saw the boxing matches that went on time and time again, but now Dooms is completely uncontested, and Savage and formerly Atlantis, Lechi, you can see Atlantis actually shutting down operations. Big loss for the EU scene going on there. Lechi now still repping till the end as they're going to continue to try and push forward and establish themselves as the top trio that they are. And one thing I want to talk about, and part of the reason why we're watching this heat as 4 other heats are going on, and these guys are good representation of that group. We have 12 World Cup participants in this group, 3 previous FNCS winners, 1 DreamHack winner, and over 2.2 million earned in tournament earnings out of these 3, or not out of these 3, in this heat combined. So this heat is absolutely star-studded and packed with talent.
I gotta say this is definitely the nightmare before Grands right here, right now. If you're the other trios and you just heard that resume, that Rolodex of superstars in your heat, you're gonna have to wipe the sweat up your brow, because that is the intensity that we're talking about here in day 1 of heats. And this is my pick right here, right now, Sundown. I drop Vettel, Stursix. Yes, these are not common household names, so to speak, but I really like the performance in week 1, the week 1 of qualifiers. They could have stood out to me. They did really well on the low ground. As you see, Mongrel, Flick, iDrop, Lynx Trios won 12 of their 36 games in qualifiers. So not only that we have the resume, the Rolodex, the medal, but we also have the actions. And this is what you're seeing right here, right now. And let me kind of reset and tell you why I like iDrop, Vettel, and Stursix. Now, there are some concerns, though. The main concerns would be that the last time they made an appearance in qualifiers, they were dropping all over the place. The success that they found in qualifiers week 1 was definitely found in Lazy Lake. Fortunately, they got pushed out of that area, and now they're in different spots here. And that's going to be my concern, Sundown. Is Stursix, Vettel, iDrop's inconsistency in changing spots, will that affect them here in the heats?
I think they play the early game well enough and adaptable enough to where they find enough spots. You can see prioritizing getting mats and just the initial loot out. They're also going and hitting those fishing spots. It's something I've been very adamant about this season, that if you're landing in a spot that has accessible fishing holes, not finding a harpoon and going over there is generally the inefficient way of going about it. There's so much available loot in that pool, from the shield fish that are added to it. Floppers end up being huge for the heal-offs and Storm takes late game. And then on top of that, the actual weapon pool itself is really strong. But now we're going over to kind of one of those contested areas we've seen before. This is the log jam, and you're probably thinking, this is a really odd spot for a fight to be going down. But the upgrade bench, the amount of metal, brick, and a huge excess of wood makes this super valuable and desirable for a lot of kind of those scavenger route teams. And 2 of them are going back to back here. You have Core, Arluca, and Martine facing up, and I'm not sure who their opponents are.
And this is going to be the opening moments for this trio. It's just so important to get into that confidence elims, just to see points right next to your HP bar. We've all been there. Everybody that's been watching, everyone that's played Fortnite competitive, that's tried a Cash Cup, that's tried a Platform Cup, that's tried a Wild Wednesday. No, it's just so nice to see points early on. And that is what we're seeing here of Martine, Luca, and Core. And they're just right now jockeying for positioning, looking for an opportunity to get those tags. And right now, it's a stalemate right now, Sundown.
And they're fighting off against AD, Eon, and Nipsey trying to find space to get 80 on the knock right away. Good follow-up from Core. Finds a 67 tag there. Gets the shot through. Luca gets the finish over on the side, so good job getting that first point over. Don't forget, each elimination is a point into the box right away. They're going to find that, and that's all 3 down. 3 points going over right away to them. They'll have all the space, the mats from the eliminations, and then also the ability to hit that upgrade bench. So they're in a good spot, but right as I say that, you see another trio creeping on in, trying to get use of that upgrade bench. But we're going to hop on over here to one of the top trios in the region, if not the world, Sancho.
It's unbelievable to think that you have probably the most debatable drop spots in this season. Doom's Domain and Stark Industries POI here. Everybody's talking about what's the best place to drop, where's it uncontested, yada, yada, yada. And what's crazier for the Heat 1 is that you have 2 of the best trios in the EU region, and like you mentioned, the world. Mongrel, Mitro Tayson taking Stark uncontested, Benji, Lecce, and Savage taking Doom's Domain. This would be, if I was a scientist, which is going to be a long shot because I have a degree in theater, but if I was a scientist, this would be like one of the most perfect examples to kind of, I guess, find the hypothesis. I mean, find the mean. I mean, this would be it right here, right now.
So the way I end up looking at it is, they've effectively, everyone in this heat has ceded over the fact that unless they throw, Mitro and his trio and Benji and his trio have qualified for grand finals. They have uncontested mythic drop POIs. It is on them to drop their level of execution, because week after week, we've seen players go over it, try and contest them, and it's not running well. Here was one of the contested spots we saw. There was actually another one over at Logjam, but huge shot coming out from Lons there with the snipe over in Sweaty Sands, trying to resolve this as the storm ends up coming through. They're going to try and swarm over onto Swaps and prevent him from going down, but the crash pad comes out right away. Quasavi into the box, not able to find the shots through the ramp yet, but going to push forward. Versa going down there, and that's 2 down so far, and I have to think they're going to convert on this 1v3. But right after I say that, Nito gets picked up and a little sloppy there. Can't really end up going down there. They'll have time to reboot, but it's just going to be an excess drain on the resources, Sancho.
Absolutely. The investment into that, as you're seeing now, they're eating Storm. If you're going to have somebody land in your POI, you're going to have to wrap that up so quickly. Wrap it up, B, as fast as possible, because you're going to have to beeline your way into the safe zone. And that is the dangers of having these outer outskirts POIs. We saw a couple here already at Logjam, a little bit, having those rotations. And if this is your first time watching Fortnite competitive, these competitors will always end up fighting each other. They will always cross paths, because they're always going to get into the same rotation. Now, someone else that we're going to have to keep an eye on, we kind of mentioned the highlight package. I believe this is your pick of Thomas HD, Flick, and Anas landing in Dirty Docks.
And they're just so freaking good. And when we talk about that, we mean not only as a trio, but the individual efforts out of these ones. We saw, particularly in the week when Thomas was able to clutch up twice back-to-back, that first qualifier when we came through. He had the highest clutch factor. But not only that, Anas was also on that list. He was the one who rounded out that list. So having 2 of your trio basically account individually for 49 points is an absurd effort. But not only that, we've seen it time and time again, and Flick very often puts himself in spots where not only he's like not necessarily in danger, but he's able to be just efficient enough to unlock the other 2. I think in order for them to win the actual FNCS, they're going to have to put together a full trio performance, but their ability to take and challenge high ground at kind of past that 7th and 8th circle time is one of the best in the game. If they hold on to those late shockwaves like you see in Thomas's inventory right now, that generally keys to me that they're looking for one of those later circle high ground takes, and from the rest of the game, they're just trying to avoid fight, get tags, and get somebody into a position to make a play.
So now we kind of took a look at all the big names in the lobby, but there's still other, I hate using tiers, but this is another strong team as well. A strong trio that has a dominant position on the map. Sundown's favorite position is center, and this here right now is the center of the map here, looking at the ruins. That has been changed for the Halloween season as the Fortnite mares overtakes the island. As you've seen, Exponential, aka Hardfind, Astro, and Mexi, they're going to have a strong opportunity, as you see in their kit as well. Sundown mentioned the shockwaves being such an important mobility piece to do that late high ground retake. And you're looking at the overall inventory, Sundown. They all have powerful shotguns, and those powerful weapons are going to enable them to do some dangerous things. And they're looking, as the kids say, they're looking stacked right now.
And I honestly think that the Authority, aka now the Ruins, as you can see Midas enabling his revenge on the map for the Fortnitemares, though the zombies not being in play here in competitive play, you can see now the central location of it really enables you because you're never going to have a bad first rotation. But more importantly, everyone else kind of forced around you. And as long as you control that center island, you're going to get your shots and not be threatened by that Storm Surge that we just saw tick on there. Now, if you're unfamiliar with competitive Fortnite or Storm Surge, what Storm Surge does is it punishes the most passive players in the lobby when the lobby gets too dense, aka there are too many players remaining for how small the circle gets. So you can see on the right-hand side, there's a damage threshold. That means the most passive trio will then start taking damage from Storm Surge. This damage is 25 damage every 10 seconds. The way you get clear of Storm Surge is that either the server drops below 70 players, that number will be in the top left, or your team does enough damage to get above the threshold, at which point it will switch to somebody else and the pressure goes on them. What ends up happening, Sancho, then, is the players get forced to act.
Absolutely. We've been taking a look at all the different graphs and stats, all from our analysts. You see there's a spike in those situations that Sundown just described. When Storm Surge starts kind of bopping you and starts chipping away at your HP, you start getting crazy, you start getting erratic, and you do your best to avoid that. And that is when you see box dives. That's when you see these neighboring trios all of a sudden get aggressive. There's like a gentleman's kind of agreement for this moment. Like they don't want to kind of ruin their plan, ruin the position. But this is a trio that has to act. They're 143 below. So Cartoon, Florian, and Legend, they're going to be aggressive. And that's going to be against iDrop, Beto, and Stir6. And that trio is a very dangerous trio to fight because they love to fight hip to hip. So you get inside a box, you're not going to box dive against one. You're going to box dive against a strong trio.
And the thing to note, too, as you can see, Cartoon and the M10 duo trying to get a little bit aggressive here. As soon as people realize that you're the one under threat of Storm Surge and you have to get aggressive, those AR shots and the medium bullets are going to rain down. iDrop, though, sees the player try and crash pad in, and that's what happened. Box to box right away. Puts them in the pincer trap. They don't need spike traps. Instead, they drop 2 down and mince meat right away. The M10 player is getting taken out. Ozil's not going to be happy with that one, as now Cartoon is going to be forced to run away, and nope, he's going to get taken out. A clean wipe coming out there from your prediction, Sancho.
Absolutely. I mean, they fight together, they move together, they do so well. My only concern was, like, will they be able to figure out their drop? It looks like they have that drop really clean. You mentioned their rotations are strong. They fight together. They don't necessarily take bad fights. That was a strong fight to take, considering that they knew that the trio was in danger of that Storm Surge. And you were just seeing right there, that is one of the pieces of the pie that our trios have to figure out. That's a big slice. And the EU region tends to have that kind of taken care of. They understand that. But when we get into heats, when we're getting into top danger situations, a little bit people, especially game one, playing closer to the chest, a little bit tight. They just got to loosen up and understand they're here for a reason. They're talking about the top 0.10111% of the world competing right here, and it's all happening simultaneously in all the different heats, and we have the pleasure of casting this one right here. I just love Heat 1. It's just filled with so many vast storylines, and I can't wait to see how it all shakes out at the end of the day.
And it kind of flips it over a little bit because I feel like the pressure is really on almost those core 3 and 4 teams that we predicted, because the rest of the community basically has them slated in for grand finals. But something to note too, you mentioned Storm Surge. Generally Europe has it found out. We saw it tick on a couple times when we were watching during the round 3s, but usually the aggression is there. This Storm Surge was active that entire time. There was a team who was either able to burn through their minis, burn through some extra floppers, find a campfire. Like, you can still outlast it by utilizing and eating that 25 damage and waiting for somebody else to go down. The problem is, once you get in that situation where there's 72, 73 left, there's nobody else who's under that same level of pressure, so they're not forced to take action, and you're kind of taking the onus out of your own hands.
Now we're getting a nice pan view of what's happening. We saw Lechi's trio down south. And the way it's going to work is 1 through 4, those zones are going to go centralized. Once it gets to zone 5, it's going to be half in and half out. Half in the safe, half in the storm. And then 6, 7, 8, and 9 are all full rotating. That's the chaos. So Sundown mentioned all these trios are going to do their best to hold on to that utility, hold on to that mobility, hold on to all that heals and HP as much as possible, because you're going to need it for those full rotating circles. And that is when usually we get into the placement points. Top 17 start racking up those placement points. And as you're seeing right here, Lechi, Benji, all trying to get this job done right here, right now, considering they haven't they only qualified through the series accumulation points. They got in through technicality always. I want to say that because getting in with the top 15 shows you that you're a dominant trio, and we know this is a dominant trio. I get that. But you know they wanted to go into the top 15. You know they want to get in the top 1. You know they want to have that social media post to show the world that they're not to be messed with. And they haven't got that yet, Sundown.
Yeah, and I'm very confused because Savage has nothing in his inventory. He has 4 builds. They have no eliminations. I think they probably got pressured by Storm Surge and weren't able to actually pick up elims and just got the bare minimums. And now they're being forced to go into the box. However, everyone's down but Savage. Let's see, able to convert onto 1, just barely gets the siphon as he's through, and that's it. They're all gone. The trio who they were fighting as well is going to then be lobby focused from the side. That's Kirby, Sammy, and Dines. And now it's just a bunch of loot over there. But Benji and Co, uncontested dooms. Game number 1, a little bit of a fumble-rooski there. Really dropping the bag, leaving everything on the table. And now we're going to see who's going to be able to capitalize on that, pick up the loot. It looks like Sammy Kajui and Dennis are all rotating over there right away. That's 2 teams worth of loot. I mean, just look at that.
Wow, the buffet is on. It must be Thanksgiving early as you see the spread of loot, but that is the concern that I've been having. That is a worrying sign. I mean, they got that uncontested, and I think it's just a lack of reps at this high level of gameplay. Yes, they could scrim. Yes, they play at a high level all the time, but it's in this moment, it's just a little bit higher. It's just a thing to say right there. You are competing for the FNCS trios. All these other players had more qualifying reps than you. You didn't make it in the round 3 in week 3, so that's my concern here. And I mean, we all rooting for the greatness to come out. I mean, that's always great. We always love names to hold on to the storyline. But folks, we are seeing new names take hold on to that strength, and we don't know. We may find the future Benji, Savages, and Lecce right here and right now in Heat 1, Day 1.
It's game number 1. I'm not overly stressed about it, particularly as you said, they don't always get the best of reps, but Benji and Savage in particular are almost notorious for their slow starts and then being able to have strong back halves. So I think if it was any other one of those top trios, I'd be a little bit more concerned than if it was them. Not to say I'm not concerned, but right now I'm a little bit more concerned for Fast Strokey and Co as they're getting taken down. And again, another wave of action driven by the reveal of that 5th zone. You can see it in the southwest corner of the map, and then also Storm Surge forcing teams to get in and get pressure on each other. That's Fadil and his trio now being taken down to just the recent signing by the new or eccentric there. That's Kylie in the corner trying to find a little bit of room and just outlast right here, as now rotation being set up by iDrop, Stir6, and Vettel, finding a little bit of room, trying to get harassment here over on the side, using whatever harpoon they can to get the loot from there. One of the stronger utility items we see. They're going to say, nope, we got what we wanted, and begin their rotation out.
And it is zone 5 right now, half in, half out. We kind of got a little peek of the map for a split second as we saw that it's in the southwest. There it is. Everyone's making the rotation. You're seeing the variety, shockwaves, bouncers, crash pads. All those kind of utility are kind of breaking out in this moment, and now you're seeing the mad rush. And we're going to take a peek at height right now, and I think an E11 player is at the height at the moment. And in trios, that is usually the best opportunity. Zone 6, 7, you're going to see the fight for height, but now we're on jumping board with iDrop. Oh my goodness, so far you dropped 2 bodies right in front of us, and you're going to get a 3rd right here and right now. The conversion, 2 points right then and there. And iDrop, who's been such a long time competitive player, Savage's duo is making a strong case right now, but he has to do it without Vettel, as now it's only up to Stir6 and iDrop to keep that trio story going.
And iDrop with the bot, but unfortunately, as you said, Vettel going down there and Stir6 completely out of utility. We saw them on one side of the zone. We're going to pan on over and see what the action's happening on the low side backup board here with Yuki, Morix, and Mateo. We had seen them pressure out Fastroki and be able to pick up the elimination. Didn't look like they were able to find the 3rd there, though, onto the centric player. So they're the ones who are pulling priority on the zone. They have 3 shockwaves, but with the amount of builds in Yuki's inventory, I'm not sure they necessarily have the utility that's going to enable them to go for height. What they're looking for right now is probably either a quick shockwave play to burst onto the trio above them, or they're waiting for an ambush, because they don't really have the ability to go super early, and yep, they're looking to set up the shockwave right now.
Here he goes, and you're seeing all the other names. Seventor, who literally just got in, I believe, the last top 15 in the last qualifier, week 3. And now here's the rotation. These are the dangerous parts of the trios. It's a little bit messy, especially when you have to throw a bear shockwave into the corner. And now Yuki and Mateo and Morix have to find a way together. Yes, there it is, that magnetizing force, the love of the trios to bring them all together, Sundown.
And you can see, don't forget the placement thresholds coming through. We have our top 17 trios just ticking over. So every single trio that drops from here on out will grant a point to the rest of the lobby. And then once you get into the top 3, you get a little bit of bonus points. Third will get +2, second gets +4, and then the winner gets an additional +5. So 11 placement points coming through for the top 3, 14 for everyone else. And Morix getting picked up there. Mateo able to pick up an elimination to get the 1 point back. But it looks like we're going to stay on board here with Yuki, who's set up to make some plays. EU has long been the place of the Lone Ranger of the course. However, first shockwave puts him in a real awkward level. Second shockwave, though, finds a huge shot on an exponential. That's an instant drop. Seventor, it's going to be the second one back to back there from Yuki, but out of shockwaves, out of utilities, only has builds on the backside of his zone. Going to find a third, find some floppers as well, and he had to get that flopper, but I don't think he'll find enough to get in zone. Just as I say that, 3 shockwaves, but he misses the angle. He's going to go down, but a good effort pushes him up for additional placement points as well. So stealing 7 points, but that is an E11 player up top. You can see Ficken up there as well. His trio has complete control over this lobby right now, Sancho.
Absolutely, and you're seeing the chaos down below as it's all getting unfolded right in front of us at the moment. It is a battle between mid ground and low ground at the moment, but Thomas and Anas are trying their best at holding on the ultimate low as Flick has been confirmed. So out he goes. So it's going to be a duo rest of the ride here as Thomas is really down to the HP, down to the sliver, but this is where you could rack up so many elims. But we've seen this as well, Sundown. When a trio gets separated, it just becomes a solo show, and now they kind of converge all together.
But Thomas had it down previously, and he was waiting for the Siphon to come out. Crash pad off the side from Anas. We've talked about this trio and their clutch factor coming through. These are the two who generally clutch. And right away, Anas finds a huge one on the edge, and now they have priority zone. They also have medkits, which means they're going to be able to play this late game scenario better than pretty much anybody who has less than 2 floppers. So right now, you can see racking up the elims as well. It's what they do best, already pushing forward to 9. However, Flixie and co. completely uncontested up on the high ground, just raining down shots as we push in. Top 6 now going on as Tayson finally ticks over.
And Mongrel is still alive, but Mongrel is battling it out in the mid-ground, picks up multiple elims. Mongrel is popping off. And Nas Thomas on the low, trying to navigate the elevation that is iDrop picking elims. But it is a story on height right now. Yes, on height wins the games, but so many points are being racked up by iDrop. Mongrel making a play for height all by himself. Oh my goodness, Mongrel gets a good tag. We're jumping back down to Nas and Thomas right now. Looking really good, looking really healthy. They have the material as iDrop finally drops Mongrel in the elim feed, but they could do it, Sundown. And Nas and Thomas, it looks like they're doing it. They have the momentum.
It's a 3v2v1, and the thing is, the people on height were up there for so long. They have to be out of builds. They had the priority low ground. This is the med kit I was talking about. Anas already had 3 damage. He's going to start popping it right now, which means Thomas is going to be let loose to try and find the eliminations. You can see Anas in the storm. Flixie, Zini laning down shots from the side. Anas now, we're almost into full close. Still has another med kit though as the 9th zone is coming through. He's dropping down. Only 9 builds left now as Height still has it, but Zini gets knocked down. Anas gets a second knock. It's all going to come down to Flixie versus Anas, and Flixie gets thrown off of high ground into the zone. He's out over in the zone. Anas has priority unless he has enough heals to continue ticking over. You can see him out there right now utilizing the chug splashes, trying to go to full heal. Here's the fight. Anas picks it up. Become legends. Anas, 13 eliminations. We talked about their clutch factor. We talked about how good my prediction was in game number 1. 38 points coming through. That was nuts.
That was amazing. The duo clutched it up. We're going to have to break down the analyst test. Woo! Break it down, fellas.
Well, Sundown looks to have made a pretty solid prediction because starting today, the 13 Elim Victory Royale. You know, honestly, I didn't know that we'd be seeing anything like this because, again, we've kind of taken things to the next level here with the Heats. But they just proved me wrong. For them, it's almost like this was just any other game. Hey, you want us to break double-digit elims and get the Victory Royale? Yeah, we can do that. We can do that in game number 1, making a statement across the board. Gentlemen, we got to take a look at the standings to see how things went here in the first game and paint a pretty good picture heading into game number 2. Take a look. We got the Victory Royale. Don't forget, that's worth a meaty 25 points. Now, here's where things kind of get a little bit interesting as we kind of move to second and third. Shy, Vettel, Eyedrops, and Stir6, third place, 11 eliminations. Flixie's trio, second place with 6. And there's only a 1-point difference between them right now.
Yeah, it's that 5 elim gap for Vettel, Eyedrop, and Stir6 overall in that last game. It was a game of just low ground capitalization, basically. There was a lot of teetering off of high ground moments. Like there were, points where we had Flixie have control overall, but then the zone just moved away from a mountain. And that happened like 3 times. Because of that, they kind of gone really drawn out. Flick, Anas, Thomas, Vettel, Eyedrop, and Stir6, these guys just capitalized on it, and they're holding the top 2 spots.
And like, there's very few teams who can kind of maintain and hold that high ground at the same time managing to pick up a huge amount of eliminations into the double digits. Mongrel, Mitra, and Tayson, a team who can do that if they get high ground purely because of their amazing AR aim and great focusing, but obviously not managing to get height that game. But still, that's why these low ground teams are being so dominant. And so far, our first and second slot are both low ground teams.
Yeah, that's actually insane to think about. With the elevated competition, that portion of the game, the low ground, is still dominating so well. Past that though, all the way to top 10, it is very, very close. Every team is kind of getting 3 to 4 eliminations. I think bar Karma's team there, who just has 1 overall but had a bit more placement in that last game. Mexi, Astro, hard find on this page in 7th place. They're looking pretty strong, but it's Dasik and his trio that are ahead of the pack right now. Brand new signing as well with Knight on Centric Gaming. They'll have 5 total elims, 18 points ahead of the pack.
And that's what we got to keep doing. Like, that's a great game. 5 eliminations and 18 points total. All the way through, all the games across both days. That's a very, very consistent. So, obviously they're not in the top 5, but they have played very, very well. And here we're moving on to the 11th down to the 15th teams. We see some kind of teams that we're very familiar with. Advise, Jakku, and Paco. Again, 10 points. Game 1, so I'm not going to say it's, out of reach for them by any means. They still have 11 games left to go. So top 8 is where they need to hit. So just going to need to be a little bit more consistent in these coming up games.
Yeah, shout out to Freemox, 7 Torn Link there. We're just looking at people who have high amounts of eliminations, 6 total in that last game. That's going to be kind of the difference maker. You saw it there in between 2nd and 3rd place. The elims are the thing that caught people up and pushed them over other players who are lasting longer in the game. Remember too, for these heats, it's the top 8 that move on, and then 16th place where we see Styler, WKey, and their trio is kind of locked in that spot that is eligible for those wild card matches. So those are the new thresholds we're looking at for heats. At the same time, Zeke, there are 4 heats going on. In this last game, though, it was just a crazy, continuous, long game that only the best could survive.
Bro, that's right. And think about it. This trio did this with only 2 members. So if you're looking at like a total problem, at 3 members, you're looking at 100% of your power. With 2, you're at 66. Like, that's even harder to do, right? And they made it, again, it looks so effortless. 13 eliminations to start the day. I'm pretty sure everyone else around is probably going to be thinking, we can't let them do that again. We can't let them pull away with it like that.
Not at all. It's not like they let them do it by any means. Hype was very, very active in that last game from what we saw, right? They were trying to beam down a lot, but as I said before, the zone just kept moving away, and away. There was a lot of tunnel vision on the back. That team still got a lot of elims, but Thomas, HD, and Anas got so much more room, Reese, to be able to perform and get ahead of the zone.
Yeah, and that's something you'll typically see behind low ground teams, always getting ahead and head of the zone. As you can see, Thomas right now building even into zone to try and ensure that he has enough space. Obviously, trying to go for high ground is one of the high ground strategies, trying to Clay Classic off high ground with the harpoon. A classic strategy, but it seems to have managed to get the knock based on knocking them down from the actual wood build that was up there. Oh,
yeah, I think the one thing the high ground team could have maybe done, you saw that crash pad be used for defense at the end. They could have thrown it down and made Nos go way away into zone, not have a chance to actually land this pump onto Kaspersa. But you saw they were so tunnel vision on getting all the other eliminations. They were so high up because the zone was moving at such a great speed away from their overall height. They were just like maybe 2 levels above the previous team. I think 2 zones before. Tune in now to this last one with the Nos. These guys had like a 10-story difference from height to low just based off all the hills around there. So not getting a bounce back. I mean, Anas, Thomas, and Flick capitalized on it, they got all the way ahead. They got that win. So you got to be very careful when you're on height, and just make sure you're keeping tabs on every team on low ground. That is very hard to do.
And I just can't believe this single tick dropped all the way down to 7 HP. That's literally 1 second. That's a reaction. That's a flick shot. That is a difference maker, and that is what we see them walk away with the victory royale. And once again, swag points for going for the Clay special. I like it. It didn't quite work out, but let's keep seeing that, because that's what's going to make you head up to the higher end of those leaderboards, because we kind of talk about this surprise factor. You can't just be running stuff textbook, because that's what everyone around you is going to be expecting. So being able to kind of just in one game, just do something weird. Hey, use an offensive shockwave. Hey, just jump up to the high ground and hit someone with a Clay special, right? These things will literally make the difference and get people victory royales. But with that being said, you know what time it is. Game number 2 is on deck, so let's send it back over to Sundown and Sancho West to lead us in on the battle bus.
Zeke and the battle bus is looking good, fully fueled up. Our competitors are now gliding into the respective spots. This is game 2 out of the 12, day 1 of heat 1. You're seeing the big names colliding, and I gotta say, Sundown, and Nas, Flick, and Thomas HT, they're repping that ghost outfits, the Ghostbusters. They basically said, we ain't afraid of this lobby. We ain't afraid of this lobby. We're here to play, and we're here to let the world know that we're going to go into grands in a dominant fashion. I know it's just game 1, but I always believe game 1 is the biggest statement piece that you can make.
Yeah, and I think it really sets you up to just kind of now play for that top 8. Again, no difference whether you're 1st or 8th. It all gets you a ticket to that dance, to that grand final, which is what it's all about. But now you don't feel like you're playing catch up, which is always a really beneficial feeling. Like, yes, anybody's able to have one of those pop-off games at any point in time, really rack off a number of solid points, but to just get it done right away and right off of the start ends up making a huge difference. As you can see, Luca picking up an Elim right off of the bat. Tenzin also going to find one. We're over here in the Dirty Docks area, which is an area that's just so particularly strong. The available amount of mats, you have an upgrade bench that's right there on the side, you have fishing spots, plenty of chests as well. I really think it's kind of underrated, especially if you're able to get it uncontested.
Just to show you how strong, folks, Thomas's HD trio is, in 14 games, they had 10 plus points. And that's just second to 4ZR's trio, who went back to back. I mean, Thomas HD, just to see his technical prowess, had 7 sniper elims during qualifiers. That's the most of any player. So you're seeing a very dangerous trio, and you mentioned the clutch factor between Thomas and Anas doing it right then and there. And you not to count on Flick. I mean, Flick got them there to that one point. Flick is going to be a very important trio. Yeah, you could kind of pop off at the end game considering that there's so much chaos, but kind of riding together, bad boy style to the end as a trio is still going to be very important. But I got to say, Sundown, I mean, what is going on? I mean, you already said it, not to worry, but I'm still worried about what's going down with Benji at Doom's Domain.
There's no possible way they'll end up with uncontested Dooms in having as many poor games like that. It was probably just a Storm Surge issue based off, if I could tell, on their loadout. It seems like they were forced to just kind of outlast the first one. Now we're going to swing on over to one of those other power POIs, the mythic POIs. The reason we talk about them being so strong are they're the only 2 areas on the map that have those vaults super available to them, able to go through, pick up just an excess amount of not only shockwaves, shields, and that, but you are also able to get those power weapons right away, whether it's the epic shotguns or those epic ARs that really enable early combat.
Yeah, and Mongrel's teammates has played very well, but the story right here is Mongrel. Mongrel is the driving force behind everything that they do. He's the elimination leader. He's in every single game that they won, he's up there. When Mongrel, though, when he goes down, they only average 29th place. So that's going to be that concern that we saw him in previous weeks. You know, Mongrel has to stay up. Mongrel is the closer for the squad. Yes, Tayson and Mitro are all decorated in their own way. You know, Tayson being a solo champion. But we just seen just having someone like the young Lord Mongrel be on his feet and in-ground and in-game beaming everybody down. That is why they call him the Big Grawl in the Twitterverse.
And we even saw last game, if you're able to check out, he posted a number of his clips as well. He had a huge pickup on the mid ground is something we saw in the elimination feed there, but he's someone who is able to make those plays and make what feel like almost hopeless situations turn in your favor. However, when you're taking fights like that all the time, it can be a little bit more difficult, and now you can see a little bit of a shift in gameplay. They're actually immediately looting Dooms, getting the max shields, and then sprinting out and trying to find another team. To me, that 100% signals that, hey, they ran into Storm Surge problem last game. How do we fix it? Well, let's go find one of those two teams who land at one of these outsides. Generally, if there is a Quinjet on that northern side, you can see that little white mark on the map there, the little white plane. That's the Stark Quinjets that have the Stark Industry loadouts that are over there. Players will go over, make sure they're hitting up the henchman chest, getting the excess weapons and shields from there. But Dooms is always going to give you better loot than that, and they're up on the high ground and pressuring right away.
And let's see if this engagement, this risk, this dip into the cookie jar so early will pay them off. I'm taking a look at HP. It's all looking the same right now. A lot of exhausted materials are happening in this engagement. Yes, the great thing about Doom's Domain as well, they could dip back into that vault. They could double dip into that, make sure they get all the resources that they need to heal back up.
And right now you can see Benji taking a shot right there immediately. Going to make sure he applies that shield. He doesn't want to get knocked, doesn't want to end up in a situation where even one of those rare or uncommon pumps could hit him with a full headshot and knock him down there. But you can see they're just trying to press forward, but we talked about these early fights. If you're not able to kind of wear somebody through right away and they make it hard enough, it can be difficult. However, with the first zone pulling just a little bit to the southeast and Doom still being in play, probably not too worried about it. Savage again trying to trade out shots, but not catching the better side of that, taking just chunk after chunk. 99 chip through almost the entirety of his shield. It's gonna pop a pair of minis and be forced to back up, but they're being held pretty well right now.
And this is what you're seeing. The level of quality of competitors is higher than qualifiers. You're in heats now. These people earn the right to play as well. And that is why you're going to see this tug of war that's happening, this stalemate, this long-lasting battle. And before you know it, someone's going to keep tabs. You're going to take a while. They could go into those VODs and those replay clients and realize, like, yeah, this is a battle that we could kind of third party on.
There's another trio coming in. There was another trio coming in right away, and you see as soon as that happens, hit the rift, gone. They're trying to spray down shots, but they have to do it quick enough because if they don't hit the rift, Nikeva and Toby are going to be able to come over. Kaxi, Nikeva, Toby from the northern side are going to be able to close that fight. That rift closes it off. Luckily enough for them, the zone is close because otherwise Storm would have been pressuring them by now, but they're going to be forced to rotate back into Dooms. However, if that other team is smart, they're taking the rift and diving down into that vault right away, stealing what they can, and then rotating back on out. Hopefully, Benji, Savage, and Lecce were able to get enough tags to avoid that initial storm surge. Again, that was the entire play, so we're going to hop back on board here with the French trio of Blaster, Alpha, and Nikov.
This trio is actually doing really well. One of the teams that we highlighted on the analyst desk coming into this matchup, they're in 5th place. Finished 6th place in game 1 with 6 elims. Very strong trio. Nikov, you know, what I like about Nikov is that he was on the tail end of two highlight plays. One from Mongrel coming down, and then that sniper shot from a trade hard trio. And, you know, to have that mental, be able to still output to be a part of that trio, that's going to be strong. I mean, especially, you know, when you're on that social media highlight, you know, on the other end of that. And for Nikov to be able to kind of shake that off and still perform at a high level to get into the heats. And like I said, this is probably the nightmare before Grand's heats. It's so stacked with so many crazy trios that Blaster and Alpha and Nikov, they could totally do it. And one stat that I got to bring up here, Sundown, is that out of the 33 trios, only 8 place in the top 8. So only 8 of those trios have that experience, and it's not going to be easy like for Mongrels and Benjis and Thomas because they haven't made it into that top 8 in the qualifiers. And Blaster and Nikov, I believe they're one of the trios that has.
Yeah, and pushing into that top 25% when you're playing against the other top competition in Europe is so incredibly difficult. It's not just placements or not just eliminations that get you there. You have to do a combination of both, or you have to have a couple of monstrous games, and to even have the capability of doing that can be so difficult. But we've seen time and time again that people have defied the odds and been able to come up with kind of those, like, put a stamp on it moments where it's like, hey, this is my game. And right now, Versa, Jake I, Serenity Swaps trying to push through here, working their way through an old tunnel, but trying not to get caught in one of those traps as we've seen time and time again. Players like to lurk in these.
Absolutely. We saw a crazy moment where Trainhard's trio, I believe, were there was, I think it was Analyx, actually, Janice, were kind of pushing through a tunnel that wasn't theirs, and at the end of that tunnel was Mongrel waiting for them. And this is that double dip opportunity that you were seeing. Once Mongrel's trio left this vault, it's all up for grabs. And a lot of trios, you kind of add this to the rotation, they add this to their loot path, because you can, you know, get that upgraded pump, you could go ahead and find a bandage cannon. There's various items that you could still find, because it's just so much in that a trio cannot essentially take everything. It kind of reminds me of the old school Oregon trail. You can't really take all the items. You're going to have to leave some behind because you get encumbered.
Now we're going to hop on board here to another fight. We saw Luca pick up an Elim early. They're going to try and get a second here. Not sure if this is a different trio. That's Serenity Akusta going down there to Martine. Some Serenity on Serenity Crime. No peace will be found for either of them. But our Luca trying to find the shot here. Not quite necessarily able to find the player yet. The player doing a relatively efficient tarp to get out. To me, that signals he's low on mats, especially since he's using wood. But the huge burst shot, that's headshot, right back onto Luca. So a little bit of room going. He's saying, hey, I know I have to go, and I have to go right now. Storm is at his back. Doesn't seem like he has any additional heals. Will use the harpoon into the first one. Luca just holding on the other side of the ramp. Teammate will flip it over, and Dezinho will go day-bye as they'll pick up 3 there.
I mean, every time I'm catching somebody into this area of the map, they're always fighting in the storm, and they're going to have to condition that over the 12-game stretch. This is game 2, and you're seeing names in the Elim feed, like I said, crossing swords. And so those are going to happen. You could kind of keep tabs at home and see who's winning those engagements, but for some reason, that Fortilla area, there were people who are kind of landing on Sundown, just end up being very inconsistent. I haven't seen, like, even Xset. You know, I know Xset does really well in the low ground, but it just takes a lot to get there. And now we're seeing some battles happening in the Stark Industry main building. Knight with some nice edits, phases through that ramp, gets a nice hit for a moment here, and now it's a nice box phasing right on in. Big time Elim right there for that squad, getting that first point of this engagement. But Knight is all alone. He's going to be that Knight standing all by himself. Can he hold on, or will this Knight get that sundown? You got to be careful here, because these are the scary moments in the trio when you have to clutch by yourself. Ooh, 150 tag. Yes, but oh no, you get tagged yourself. Oh my goodness, this is not looking good for Leon, Dasik, and Knight.
You can see Knight just very recently signed to Centric. Literally, I think that was this morning or yesterday, going through Dion Waiters, getting involved again. But Leon going down there as Sammy and Dines being another benefactor of kind of a trio being pushed into them. Day was able to trade one out. So right now, this is just a 1v2. He wants to work over towards Leon to see if he can potentially save a little bit of the resources and keep him up. But he knows there's a trio not only ahead of him, he should be able to hear that trio breaking the builds behind him. So it's going to be a tough opportunity, especially after a first good game where they're able to get 18 points. To kind of get caught on the edge of zone rotation here is really difficult. However, we've already seen Knight clutch up once. Can he make it happen again? As that's a Nos, Thomas, and Flick over on the side, who are now closing in on that fight again. That was the game 1 38-point winner, and instead Centric uses one of his 4 shockwaves to just disengage up and through the side. And honestly, I think he's probably just going to sprint straight to zone.
That was literally a battle of the top 10 Sundown. You had number 1 spot going up against 6 and 9. So that's kind of crazy how all of that was unfolding. It just shows you how powerful the POIs are even worth revisiting after the initial drop, considering that valuable loot there, that valuable vault is available up for grabs. And now we're seeing everybody else trying to navigate up here. Good thing at Risky Reels that you're seeing this 200 and Wakey or WKey and Styler, they don't have to really work the elevation here. It's the low point, but that means Sundown, there's going to be a lot of traffic going into that spot here, as you're already seeing on your mini map on your bottom right. You're seeing so many arrows here holding up that low ground, and this is an opportunity going for that. What is this? This Clay special all day today? Everyone using the power of the harpoon. You were seeing its different uses available to break builds and get inside boxes efficiently, and that is a great push right there for this trio.
And it also isolates and disorients people. If you get hit by one of those harpoons in a box situation, it's really difficult to then have a follow-up shot, and then all of a sudden you're inside of another trio. They're all directly on top of you, and you're not quite able to get picked up there. So good utilization of the harpoon there. Going to start trying to work their way through those catacombs. You can see everyone working box to box right now. This is the fight we were kind of talking about early on. That's Sanji Fishy actually getting caught out there. Michael also being taken out, and instead Emo is going to be forced off to the side. Does have shockwaves if he wants to disengage. Kinwin also getting knocked, but some good return shots coming through from Ebo. Toby getting caught kind of gargling there. Statue up on the side. Caxi now with the storm at his back as well. This is going to be mostly a one-on-one. You can see Emo trying to work his way over to the loot, pick up the builds, get 7 shockwaves for his treble, and he's going to say, thank you, I'm going to take those, set up the bouncer shockwave, and he's going to space straight to the zone, right into upstate New York.
And here we go. We're going to get our first taste of upstate New York. This is going to be a very interesting ending. If you've never had an end game here, if you've never seen Fortnite competitive, the value spots are going to be on the mountain. There's a lot of different elevations here. There is some water, a lake, and a river that go through it. And that is where things get scary. We have seen the river, the end game end up on the lake. And that is where a lot of our competitors are going to use their builds because they have to cover the floor as well. So we have to assume Mongrel's trio, which is already bailed out of that Stark Industries so early, as we saw, they weren't in sight here earlier in the game. I think most likely they're kind of perched up really high because every time a zone ends up here Sundown, they always end up at height at like early on, and they never let it go.
And you can see, luckily for the competitors, it's pulling more centrally, so less of kind of those really, really sharp outer edges that are almost polar peak X, the ones that end up coming in. They give you the acute angle up from the ground, which means you're not able to directly connect against them. The only verticality they're going to have to compete with is the innate mountain on the inside, which, while still pretty difficult, it's not as bad as it could be. It's not going to force as many uses of rotation, so you're going to see some more opportunity to use that either a little bit earlier or in rotations on the side zone. But you can see Ziku, Weepu, and Kaizen finding some great shots there. Excuse me, a little bit of a miscommunication there as the horizontal shockwave comes out from Kaizen. He rockets himself forward, but Ziku back, gonna force him to use a crash pad that could have been used to get in the box. They're gonna find the cleanup there onto Exponential. Gonna find a second one there onto Mexi as well. Can they continue pushing forward and find the third? They haven't isolated 1v3. They're right on the edge of zone, and they should be able to clean this one up as the player is now going to just try desperately disengage.
Here we go. We're getting closer and closer to the end game. This was zone 4. Zone 5 is at half in and half out. 6, 7, 8, 9. It's going to be the rotating. Of course, 9 will be the ultimate closing zone where it goes all the way down and the entire island's engulfed. And we saw how important it is to navigate that. You literally have seconds. Our game 1 winner, Anas, went all by himself up to the very end. Thomas HC was there. The duo got to the end, but Anas was kind of dancing in and out, dealing with having to use that siphon HP, dipping in the storm, holding on to the very last second. Like, that is the kind of dance that you're going to have to master if you want to step up your game in the Fortnite competitive. Every second matters, every HP, med kit. There's so many different ways to survive that dangerous zone 9. And speaking of survival, Benji, Lechi, and Savage already with the rough start here. We're going to take a look at their kit. Got some elims. They made some changes. Let's just see if those adjustments are going to pay off for them here in game 2.
And they're well above Storm Surge this time as well. You can see finding another knock right there. That's Laurent. A little bit of a miss at it, but they're going to try and close the box. And a little bit. Sometimes you're a little over eager, and right away they're going to use that pickup throw feature, disengage with Savage, saying, nuh-uh, the knock right there is not worth losing our superstar. Going to try and use whatever utility they can to make sure they get them up. They're going to trade the revives back on the other side, so Laurent's going to be picked up. The utility is going to be used. A little bit of Storm Surge damage, again, being traded back and forth. A Storm Surge is still on and impacting one player, as Vidil is actually going to get a knock onto Mitro there. So Mitro's trio in a little bit of trouble right now.
Here the trouble is ensuing. Shots are going. Everybody's trying to get that free elim, kind of condition the lobby to make these rotations. As you see Versu picking up an elim, and that's going to give him the green light to make that rotation. It's not necessary. Yes, you're going to get a point on the leaderboard, which is going to be very valuable, but you're going to enable you to stand a little bit longer to get a cleaner rotation right then and through. And Versu was able to get that and perch on top of that one knock that they had, and now they're going to have the opportunity here. They are in the half in and half out zone 5, and this is the dangerous part of it all. because in trios you could separate so easily, and at the same time you could use up so much of mobility if you make a bad. We already saw someone make a bad shockwave play early on, because this is where the nerves start maybe getting to the butterflies, as you see in just a very erratic bounce right there. And now they're going to spend so much materials as Versu is doing all that he can to get back up to his teammate who is higher up there. But look at all the builds that he's expending here, Sundown.
Yeah, that I don't know if I agree with it. It's going to end up working out for them as they're going to pick up Tayson, and he's going to get a massive refresher on mats. But if they weren't able to end up picking up that would have not been as worth. The one thing I would note is it got them off of that clustered side of the zone, since everyone was pretty much rotating from the eastern side. If they were on that level and just sitting in brick, it would have been really difficult. However, you could see Mongrel and Micho directly under right now. They did have Tayson get taken down just before that, which enabled the team to take height. You have Anas, Thomas HD, and Flick just below them, and you can see the rest of the zone, kind of how they're panning out, who has power positioning. Our high ground trio from last game, Zynie, Flixie, trying to get a little bit of a position there. You have the Otterworld duo of Jachu and Paco just underneath with Advise. So a lot of trios who we've seen be able to execute plenty of late game moves to pressure off of high ground. And you can see, boom, right as I called it, Shockwave going up towards that power position, but instead, a little bit of a miss execution from Zestin and Co. As another one will come out, and everyone's moving over because that zone is pulling south and east.
The sound of the alarm, and you're seeing here in game 2 at in-game, it is the who's who of the zoo, still vibing, still rocking together. You're going to see a different kind of layers kind of form naturally as our players navigate these rotating. You're going to have the low ground, mid ground, and height. This is a feature of right now, a little peek at what's happening on the low ground. This is actually a strong rotation from this trio here, kind of focusing outside and catching the feet. A blaster right then and there. The shins are available. Give him them toes. Nico with the 1-point elim.
You know, we're out here in EU. Make sure you're wearing your shin guards before you go out and take the pitch. You can see keeping an eye on that top left-hand corner. Once we zoom back right now, keeping an eye on the wide as Micho and Mongo are able to take it. The top left, we need to see 30 before Storm Surge turns off, and now we're into top 17. So each trio that drops will be gaining a point right now as a big shot comes out from Nico, trying to follow up with that tactical SMG, and that's Mr. Savage, and then a takedown right away behind him, as well as Benji also gets down. So down bad, Benji and Savage, as Nico gets dropped all the way down into who knows whose box. That was a Canadian mogul monster right there, as Ziku eats the shot, but he's way out of zone. He needs that siphon to tick over. He's barely going to be able to find it in time, but can he find his way back to the zone? No more mobility except for the bouncer, and instead gets denied by the brick wall as we talk about Old Man Mountain claiming his toll, and the changes in verticality. That slight rise up the one mountain that was in play is going to drop so many players as we went from 48 to 17 in our top 10 in the blink of a rotation.
Yeah, and Benji's team only making it into that top 16, so only one placement point doled out. They were only going to walk away from this match with their elim points, and the struggles continue for that. It's only game 2 out of 12, but now we're seeing Thomas and Flick taking height away from Mongrel's trio. Already, that is going to be a great story to unfold as Thomas Flick, I was about to say, Sundown, Mongrel's trio has the advantage here because this is their backyard. This is their drop spot. They know every single sign of elevation, every grid point. But Thomas, HC, and Flick, you just can't slow that train down.
Yeah, but Zynie also just picked up his own double. Another trio making it into the late game. Lol Boom, the young Irishman, the World Cup qualified player, making a statement saying, I'm back, everybody, what's up? A nice little double from him as well. He gets all the resources, all the utility, going to opt to also pick up that bandage cannon for the late game heals since he knows it's going to final zone. You can see, though, Thomas HD and Flick still up on the high ground. However, single tarping and breaking down trees while using wood, to me, signifies they're low on mats, but it doesn't matter as now we're going to swing on board to the low ground madness as it's a 3-on-2-on-1. No, it's a 2-on-2-on-2. Now it's just a 2v2 as Thomas picks up the cleanup there onto Mongrel and Co. Well done from him there, but can Vidil and Kylie close out against Thomas and Flick? Flick goes down himself. Flick falling all the way down, just going to give some extra materials over, and now it's a 1v2. Can Thomas clutch up?
Thomas has clutched in this situation. That 2v1. This is game 2 on the line. Now the stories have flipped. The deal is on height with Kylie, and Thomas is on low. Thomas gets tagged twice for blue, and Thomas gets eliminated from Vidil. Game 2 goes to the Victory Royale winners of Kylie and Flash Roki, who didn't have a great start in game 1, but they're changing their fates here in game 2, Sundown.
Well done from Kylie, Frastroki, and Vidil, executing when they needed to. We talked about being able to go through when you take the high ground, when you're able to pressure out, and they capitalized. They got the eliminations they needed, and they're able to close out game number 2 and push themselves up into that top 8 spot, and that's all it's about, holding on to the top 8 and getting a ticket to that dance.
Yeah, and we're seeing the stories kind of come into life here, the stories of the Benji struggles. But a great story that we got to hold on to is Thomas HD coming in second place with his trio. Strong performances all around. We're going to kick it to the analyst desk to break it all down.
Very well executed, and a trio we're not used to seeing in the top, finding themselves at the top with the Victory Royale. Now, I do want to give them a pretty big congratulations, but real quick, what happened there when we were rotating alongside Father Mountain? I feel like we went from like 30 trios or 30 active players to just like 16. What the heck happened?
Yeah, we had like 16 trios alive in a matter of 15 seconds. 6 go down. We're left with our top 10 because there was a hill in the way. The zone didn't even go up that hill, but the potential of it made people scared. Past that, we had the end game where Anas, Thomas, and Flick were on height, and now they are still in first. One Victory Royale, 18 Elim, 63 points.
Yeah, and you see our winners from game 2 there, Vidil, Fastroki, and Kylie, picking up that big Victory Royale. They placed 19th with 0 eliminations in game 1, so they just missed out on placement. 2 places away missing out on placement, which is absolutely devastating for them, but really bringing it back, getting that Victory Royale and the 9 eliminations.
Yeah, Mongrel meets rotation once again. Being consistent, I think they had a fight for height possibly there, some mid-ground action. We were focusing on low and how Vidil was surviving, but after that great filter effect happened, after everyone got scared of the mountain and trios went down, these guys got to live out, look behind, and take shots, take elims, take points. Past that, 6th to 10th place, more teams who are now kind of switching up and solidifying their spot. A very good showcase here from Lol Boom in that past game, Reese.
Yeah, they were popping off as well. They managed to get 8 eliminations and placed 4th there. So very, very good game for them. It's moved them up to 7th. And the difference between them and the other teams that we talked about when we went up the hill is that everyone was getting ahead of the zone. Everyone's getting ahead of the zone. However, the other teams ended up turning back for eliminations and getting stuck down on that verticality there. Lolboom's team on the other side kept ahead of the zone, got to the top of the hill, and continued to get their placements, and that's why they placed 4th there.
We saw Blaster kind of make it towards the end, but then get taken out slightly. I think that was the last person to get eliminated out of that trio. But still 11th place overall. At 15th, we have Hardfind, Mexi, and Astro. Still holding things down for that top 15. Remember, once again, at the end of the heats, we're looking at the top 8 in EU moving on to the grand finals. The 9th to 16th place teams will be looking to play in that wild card match. And obviously, we have 2 days of games to watch so far in Game 1, Game number 2. It's looking really good for the top team so far, but Benji, Savage, and Lechi uncontested at Dooms in 19th place, Reese.
Yeah, you know, they struggled with game 1 with Storm Surge. They ended up having to take a mid-game fight, which ended up not working out for them. Used all their materials up there. Didn't end up very well for them. We saw them go down on the main broadcast. Game 2 there, they tried to get ahead of that by getting Storm Surge tags by rotating to the dead side up at the north. Didn't work out for them too well here either, because obviously they didn't manage to get far enough into this game either. So hopefully game 3 is going to be their game.
Bro, and this is the kind of things that we talk about, right? Is like, when you're coming into something that's this competitive, even if you get something uncontested, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the game, right? There's still a lot of other factors that we have to keep track of. Let's walk this game back, because this was a pretty devastating game.
Yeah, this was actually even a coin flip from what we saw last game. If last game was heads, this was tails for the team on height and on low. A very similar type of ending, but Thomas HD was actually on height dropping down this time, and it didn't work out for him because of Fast Strokey's plays.
Yeah, you can see there are no heals in the inventory, but these guys are making a huge tunnel for themselves, being very, very careful. They know Fastroki has no materials, so he kind of has to just go for one of these plays on an opponent out there. Potentially could have stayed in that tunnel a little bit longer. However, he's left Vidil and Kylie alive still, and they thrived in this game. Popped off, picking a big elimination on Lolboom, breaking their way in, and finally getting some of those materials that he needed to get him through this endgame.
And as Mongrel, Micho, and Tayson's team gets taken out in this, once again, 2v1 scenario where one person has to clutch, the difference that Vidil's team actually made and did is they pushed up ahead and tried to go up for height after Flick gets eliminated, I think from fall damage here coming down, but they make a move up. Thomas is forced down, and they have such an advantageous position to land more shots and wrap up the game.
And without that pickup on Lolboom there, this would not have been possible because Vidil had 0 materials and he managed to get around 60 builds out of that. So a huge pickup there, enabling him to have enough materials to get through the endgame, and obviously also the bandage bazooka there as well, making him able to use that white heals all the way back up. So that one elimination clutched that Victory Royale up for that entire game.
I love it. Now, of course, guys, we're going to get back into these games, but don't forget, we talked about there's 4 other heats happening at the same time as this. So what we're going to do is actually check in with heat number 2, take a look at their standings, and see what is going on over there. Currently, we have Alexa, Milan, and Chapix, a very strong duo coming into heat number 2. After 2 games, they're looking pretty good. 52 points. Once again, do not forget, it is the top 8 trios that will automatically move on to grand finals. Trios that place between 9th and 16th will be put into the wild card match.
Yeah, so Chapix at first, Floki at second, and Kinzel at 5th. Is this the qualifiers, or is this just business as usual for these teams? Because they're looking just like they looked every other weekend. We saw even Train H being there overall in 6th. I think in game number 1 they ended up winning. They're at that first place slot. Yes, they dropped down, but they're still in that top 8.
You know, and that's what happens. You pick up a big Victory Royale, 9 eliminations first, and then they obviously go down, I think, to Storm Surge in that second game. 25th place, 0 eliminations, so not a huge game for them, but given the fact that they placed first with 9 eliminations, they clearly are playing very, very well today, and they're going to probably continue that throughout the remainder of the games.
I think the difference we're seeing from Heat 1 and Heat 2 right now is in Heat 1, the winners of Game 1 are still looking very good in Game 2 and making it to the end. In Heat 2 of EU, it's a little bit more of a toss-up and people are fighting for that top spot. Consistency, though, is still king. Those VRs are a little bit more spaced out overall, though.
And we'll have to see if consistency plays a factor here in game number 3, because we're getting ready to jump back out of the battle bus, so let's send it over to our casters to take us in. Let's get it.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, and you can see the blood is in the water, or the loot is in the water in this case, as the shark exiting the shark, but everyone else right now, besides Thomas and co, trying to claw out of the jaws and into the top 8, as we'll get another look at our map here. This is match number 3 on the day, getting in the halfway point here, the quarter-way point overall, and we're starting to get a little bit of a shakeout of what the standings might look like.
Hey, all I gotta say, Sundown, is Benji's trio is gonna need a bigger boat, because right now they're sinking at the moment. It's a slight dip, and I'm taking a look at their history. I was looking like what's going on with Benji's, but we see them kind of finish very in the 30s placements throughout the entire time, but then they just have these monstrous pop-off games, and so hey, they got plenty of time. But the story here is Vidil telling that the rest of the world to deal with this trio at the moment, because they were able to walk away with the Victory Royale in game 2. And I gotta admit, when we were making predictions, this was my pick of Vidil, Fastroki, and Kylie, because they were getting steamy stacks uncontested, and for some reason in the EU region they were saying, you know, hey, this is where champions are born, out of the mucky muck of Kevin's primordial goo. This is where the championships in the EU region come from, Sundown.
Yeah, and we've seen it time and time again, mainly for solos, but Vidil is somebody who particularly came on my radar during the FNCS Invitational when he was one of the few people to opt into fighting Mongrel time and time again. He fought him in the Cash Cups as well, and you know, there's a time and place where he was whooping him for a little bit there. Of course, Mongrel will always eventually turn those fights around. I'm not sure there's anybody who can go quite 50-50 with him, but Vidil is more than capable of taking those fights. Again, representing Wave there. You have Fastroki for Ovation, and then Kylie again for that new org, Centric, who just signed 3 European players, and an NA player in Jelti. So, representing Mexico down there, Vamos de Jelti and all of his fans. But now we're over here keeping an eye on the EU side of actions, we're going to hop on board here with Lol Boom. Again, the young Irishman who we've seen did qualify for the World Cup, had a great performance in the last game, and 5 of the current top 10 teams didn't play in any of the round 3 qualifiers. So they managed to get there just off of the consistency points, which I think is actually speaking volumes to just how much talent there actually is in Europe.
I 100% agree with that. When we're going into this, prepping for these kind of broadcasts, we always said on any given day, an EU trio can kind of rise up and just take the crown at the very end. And that is what we're seeing. 1 through 1,000, getting to that top 33. And you're just seeing the quality throughout the entire time. We're seeing like the level of play right in front of our eyes right here. And we're seeing Kusto sniping. I think Kusto is going to have to solo ride this. Not quite sure what's happening. Stranger things do happen in the Fortnite island, but Akusto and his trio with 0 points here. And now it's all up to Akusto to get at least 1 here, but it's not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Sipe and Dazinho end up on the bad side of trades in the first 2 games, and Akusto just trying to play a little bit of spoiler, and he's going to get Stylerixon right there. No problem converting on that one right away, just a little bit too separated from M10WK, who's going to be able to push forward and find a big 160 shot, but not quite able to convert as Akusto now got 1, got 2. Hello? Gotta hit all of your shots there as the player missed everything. Akusto, another 56. Can he close it up? 1 HP in a dream. He pops a bandage, going to save the chug splashes for after he gets up that threshold. He should know that the tick over at W key is not necessarily valid, as 200, 200, 200, 200 should be able to close the gap and try and push in. He's going to do so right now, but he's still in 1 shot potential from Akusto, but not going to be able to find it. The ramp flip comes through, but he still eats the shot from that common pump, and 200 saves the day, but he had to sweat a little bit.
A very valid effort from Akusto, considering he did not have his trio mates in that battle. And now we're going to have a underground battle come fought out right here in Lazy Lake. You're seeing the basement that's connecting these 2 houses. I'm sure everyone out there that plays public matches knows these houses very well. It's a very strong opportunity. You're going to have a strange box fight here. Of course, Wild Wednesday had that box fighting tournament, and we're seeing a taste of what box fighting can really do in a tight quarter as we're hearing the Harpoon go out there, and Leon, Knight, and Dasik getting the 1 elim out of the trio. And I think that's going to signify the full retreat here from the other side of things, but I don't think Leon and Knight and the Dasik are going to let this one go.
No, they're trying to close the gap here, and it's a little bit of centric on centric violence right now, as that was part of Lolboom's trio up there, so that should be Boom & Co. But if you keep a look on the bottom right-hand corner of your map, there's another trio who's now closing in the gaps, as well as Nico is now going to be taken down as well. That's Centric, who's going to be able to convert over onto that one. So Boom is all by himself, and all of a sudden it's a 3v3v1 right here on the edge.
It's just a matter of time. We're just seeing these third parties, and I mean, in different times in qualifiers, some spots have become hot, and it looks like Lazy Lake is becoming super hot right now as Legend takes out Low Bloom, the young Irishman taken out quickly in Legend, Cartoon, and Florix. So we've seen doing really well. We did see him in game 1 kind of struggle with the Storm Surge, showing how dangerous he can be, push them into a bad situation, but it looks like in game 2, they will turn that around a bit. They have 16 points. In game 3 is so far a solid start as they're able to pick up the last remnants of that engagement.
Hitting up some of those consumables there coming out of the kitchen, making sure he pops not only his peppers but all of the shields. Make sure he tosses that one forward there to his teammate, but right as he does, eats a burst shot from the top side of the mountain, so he needs to be a little cautious on this rotation. He does have the bonus speed, which should make it a little bit more efficient now. We're going to cut back on over. You can see Knight and Co. have a shot over there as we hop on board. Here's iDrop, Vettel, and Stir6 up on top of Sentinel's Hill. Another Sentinel's kind of gorgeous gorge in play right now, so currently heading a little bit more towards the southern side of the map, but still plenty of players remaining. 83 up, 29 trios, which means we're definitely going to see at least a little bit of Storm Surge pressure coming through here in the next zone.
And this trio right here has the highest percentage of points from placement, and nearly 75% going into these heats. So they're very strong, like you mentioned, not kind of take crazy fights. They value positioning. You see them kind of surveying the Sentinel graveyard. And this is a very quiet trio, though. They're right now top 5 going into this match with 27 points. Their average placement is 3rd place with average elims of 11. So looking very dominant, looking very strong. And yeah, I know maybe someone out there saying I have 2 picks, but that is my official pick going into this. Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6 looking great here in Game 3.
You can see right now a trio who's honestly outperformed my expectations so far. Fixie, Zynie, and Trick Caspera. Sorry, I apologize. They're tripped over. I was about to make a Friendly Ghost reference, and then I was like, nope, there's an A on the end. But rocking that Stark Industry rifle right now, trying to turn and get some shots. Also the legendary loadout on Fixie, and they've had just such fantastic loot and positioning the entire game. We've seen them on the high grounds and making it through, and their ability to pressure opponents out just based off of where they're positioning themselves has been honestly really impressive, like that akin of some of the other top trios in these endgame situations. And I wasn't ready for that, as now apparently somebody who wasn't ready for a fight as well, getting jumped on. That's Sanji Fishy, again, down but not out, getting picked up, yoinked back, thrown into his team. His teammates are going to disengage. They have Tayson, Mitro, and Mongo on the backside of them. Nobody wants to run in between kind of those 2 trios, as now Vadil and co are a little bit under pressure, and this is going to be a fight. Kind of, we talked about it, Vadil versus Mongo, who comes out on top in trios.
The most interesting thing as well is I can't imagine the comms for Tayson. I know Mongrel's still here, though. Mongrel is kind of trying to see if he could sneak in some sort of an elim, and I know probably Tayson's trying to pull him back, rein him back, and kind of position him for a better way, and that is the role of a strong in-game leader, to kind of navigate these strong players with their strong confidence and strong egos, because, you know, every single player, especially a Mongrel and Mitro, understand they could take on anybody. They could fight 1v2, 1v3, it doesn't matter, and Mongrel's literally kind of spearheading this fight against our Game 2 winner here, Sundown.
Yeah, they're trying to take him down, close the gap right away, but it's Vadil against Mongo. He says, I used to have your number in solos. Well, I got your number here right now, and that's a huge pickup for them as well. Going to get an upgrade on the mats, get over some excess shields that his teammate is going to be able to pop, get them all up to that 200 threshold in terms of effective HP. Just well done from Vadil, finding a great pick, got the wall at it, got the ramp in. Kuna flipped it right away. That's when you have the ramp and then you flip it backwards to give yourself a right-hand advantage over the enemy. Blasted Mongrel, and then they found the elim, puts him above Storm Surge, and now they're just going to walk their way to zone.
And that was a huge elim, and that's going to put a big dent into Mongrel, Mitro's, and Tayson's ride, because when Mongrel goes down first, they average 29th place. So that's going to be a concern going forward. He is the key to everything that they do. So that is, man, it's just saying, I kind of mentioned, Mongrel likes to be the spearhead right there. He's the one that he's their alpha, for lack of a better word, and when the alpha wolf goes down, now it's up to Tayson and Mitro, and I just know Tayson was just like, hey man, come back, we don't need this fight at this moment.
And 2 interesting things here to talk about in Anas's loadout right now. He's not holding an AR, so them being below Storm Surge threshold and him being unable to get tags on these rifting players is very important. But he's holding a rocket launcher right now. Specifically, he's got that spooky version, the pumpkin launcher, coming out. Now, some players are like, what? I thought those were disabled in Arena. No, they do not drop from those henchmen coming through, but rocket launchers have always been in play if you want to go and get those loot shards. If you're able to take them out, they have a very low percentage of drop, but if you are able to find them, 1, the value of a rocket launcher is just immense from being able to break and pressure builds, but 2, nobody expects them anymore. People leave open edits and they leave open themselves on low ground all the time. They won't tarp out in front of them, which makes it that much better. But right now, their hopes are basically on Anas hitting a snipe shot here to put them above Storm Surge threshold.
The most dangerous weapon is in play. The odds of finding it are low, and Nas finding that sniper shot that they really needed, and it's showing you the value as well of a sniper in hand. Thomas HG, one of the best snipers in the world, and Nas showing his skill, and that was big because that's going to put Storm Surge back in their favor, as now they're over 232 above. But you know, Sundown, they're like, okay, we got this ultimate weapon in our hands. We're going to have to hold on, because if they lose it, if they drop it, that means it's going to switch into somebody else's hands, and they're going to have this advantage. Alrighty, right now, we've been using the word consistent throughout the entire broadcast, and Thomas HD and Nas and Flick have been the most consistent trio today.
And right now you can see Mongrel is back in play over there, so potentially a reboot situation having come out there. His name is on the side. You can see Tayson and Mitro recognizing the fact, hey, we need to get him back up, so good on them there. But we're going to look to see what ends up happening with the high ground play late, because if you get an RPG up onto height, it's incredibly difficult to deal with. Now we're going to hop on board here. Lecce, Mr. Savage, and Benji Fishy right over by the cabin just above the abandoned Ghost base. You have kind of that solo house over here. There's plenty of wood available, a little bit of excess metal in here, but you can see they are hurting on materials. The question is, though, how are they doing on that Storm Surge? It is turned off right now, but 0 eliminations, and they haven't really necessarily seen them trading out that many shots.
And of course, my question going forward is, what kind of Mongrel will we get when we reanimate him? Will it be a very Pet Cemetery type ending? His Mongrel gonna go full aggro, or will he understand that he has to kind of dial it back a bit? But someone that has to kick it up to that 11 level is Benji, Savage, and Lecce. They got to turn up here soon, Sundown.
And you talked about our most consistent trio so far. They might have bitten off more than they can chew on the edge of zone contention, as Morix just got a knock onto Thomas HD. We're actually going to flip the script real quick, and we're going to hop back on board with the story that is Tayson, Mitro, and Mongrel. Mongrel had gotten knocked early on in that circumstance, but you can see right now we were talking about kind of the fight early on between them. Vidal won more than 65% of his fights versus Mongrel in FNCS solos and invitationals. So, hey, I talked about Mongrel getting him back a little bit. Well, at least it wasn't kind of that first little 4-0, 5-0, but still, somebody who's able to go 65-35 against Mongrel in official competition in solos, that's impressive to me. That is a high-skill player, however you want to define it.
It's saying a lot, the Clash of the Titans that we're seeing here. This is Heat 1, Day 1, Game 3 out of the 6 of the FNCS trios. We're going to see the top 8 advance. The other heats are happening right now, and we will do our best to keep you up to date on all the developments here on our analyst desk. I am Sancho West alongside Sundown. Thank you all so much for joining in wherever you are from around the world, as we're seeing the EU region duke it out to see if they could get their way in to the top 8. And of course, that crazy wild card game will happen, I believe, tomorrow. Whoever doesn't make it will get put into that lobby, and only a victory royale will solidify your place into the 33 spot, the 33rd spot, and that's going to be an awesome sight to see when the pressure is at its all-time high. But Tayson almost falling down to that gorgeous gorge there, Sundown.
Yeah, and you need to make sure if you are going to drop into that river, you have to land completely in the center. If you are not in the center, then you will end up going into the down but not out. And also just a quick little correction there, Sancho, that wild card match, the most intense match with the top 33 trios who didn't qualify through heats will have one singular opportunity, and it is just the victor who walks away. That will be before the grand finals, the first part of the grand finals cast on Saturday. So you're going to want to make sure you tune in on Saturday to watch this match, because that's going to be something that we've never seen before in Fortnite history. The players only playing for the victory royale. As you see Tayson doing something we've seen plenty of times before, him cleaning up at long range, that legendary burst rifle, putting off the shots there. 3 eliminations so far from Tayson, Mongrel, and Mitro. 41 points, and not horrible positioning either. They should be able to just walk into zone here with only one team in between them, and as long as they path kind of a little bit to the left of the bridge here, that shouldn't be too much of an issue.
We've got essentially a tale of 2 different sides here. We know, we already took a peek what's happening on the other side. Benji's on the other side of this Sentinel graveyard. He's sitting out there near the Bifrost Heroes Park area. But now we're going to take a look at where is everybody else. iDrop, Veto, and Stursix have been there this entire time. They've been slowly inching their way in. Paco advised, and that trio has a strong position. And Jachu and Paco and Advise are kind of split there. And if they can find a way to connect that high ground, they're going to be in dominant position going forward. All these other teams are going to have to navigate the Sentinel graveyard. And we've seen that how it could be so dangerous. It could be so suffocating. Go up against those kind of items because they cannot be broken. We did see Thomas HD have a very clutch moment in this area here. And now we're seeing actually Benji, Lecce, and Savage don't have the strong side here or the high ground in this. It is actually Flixie, Zini, and Casper say who have this strong opportunity here. And already impressing Sundown. And let's see if they can have an impressive finish here in game 3.
Yeah, and you can see Fixie has already been able to pick up an elimination as well this game. Caspera, they have plenty of shots here. You can see Storm Surge Threshold is turning on. That's on the right-hand side. The number we're looking for in the top left is 50. Well, that will turn off again if you are new to competitive Fortnite. Storm Surge ends up turning on to punish the most passive players in the lobby. The ones who have done the least damage to opponents will take 25 damage every 10 seconds. That hurts. So you want to get above that threshold. The way you do that is by putting shots into their opponents. And we can see Benji finally getting himself up on the board. Thomas HD, who was knocked earlier, back up on his feet, taking out Yuki there. So is our most consistent trio. Recon just kind of chilling out there in the open. No clue what's going on there, but an easy elimination coming out there. That's 2 right now from Caspera and co.
And a huge elim in the feed, folks, as Thomas HD does go down. And I also have to say, this is the clue. A big clue for them is that they actually pull the half in and half out. That investment into the high ground is working out for them. But they have to be careful, as Paco advised in Jachu, as you see dead center at the top of your screen. That team could essentially, with one shockwave, vault over, especially a mega shockwave, vault right over them and cap them and leech on top of the high ground. So that is what we're going to see here in this rotation. But considering that they do have zone here, Lecce Benji could kind of rack up a lot of elims and essentially gatekeep anyone coming their way. And there it is. Elims are happening. Elims are flowing their direction. But can they capitalize and not get knocked in in-game like they did in the previous one, Sundown?
And Storm Surge now off 47 players remaining, but more importantly, we are into the placement point. 17 trios remaining, so everyone getting 1 point. If your team gets eliminated, everyone else will receive 1. You can see Vettel already down here, which means this is a 2v3 attempt. Well, quick 2v3, turn that around. That's the good old dodgeball swing as they take out 2. They're going to pick that one up and get all of the mats on that end. iDrop and Stir6 well executed in that box-to-box fight when they desperately needed.
Nothing like that good old catching of a dodgeball to flip your stance and give you that advantage. And that is what you're seeing, the power of iDrop and Stir6. They stand tall. They stand hip to hip. They fight together. They fight as one. Metro picks up an elim in the feed. But can iDrop and Stir6, who are, they navigate low ground so well, just like Exet in the NA East. This is going to be a strong team going forward, but down in man, we did see that a duo was able to capitalize in Thomas and Anas getting the victory royale, so they're not out completely. But now someone that is on the outside looking in, looking for that first strong game here in day 1 of the heats, it's Lecce, Benji, and Savage. And they're kind of have to make their way through here as you're taking a look. They're just teetering on Storm Surge Sundown, just teetering as they take this aggressive rotation into the front of the zone.
Yeah, and the Storm Surge really not a huge threat here, as such a far rotation, such a change in verticality is going to force players out and to expose themselves anyway. But more importantly here in Savage's loadout, when we tuned in previously with him, we had talked about, wow, he doesn't have a whole lot. 6 shockwaves, 2 bouncers, all of the materials in the world. They loaded up their playmaker. He's on the front side of the zone. But look up who's on high ground for the 3rd game in a row. Fixie, Zini, Caspera holding the high ground again as we're going to swing over to the front side of the zone. They're in the safe area as everyone else is being driven into them by this moving circle. Mr. Savage makes them pay. That epic AR finding core there. 3 shots and then 3 again on the confirmation there. Another point ticks him over. That's his 3rd elimination, and can they keep it running as the zone pulls back again for them?
The playmaker doing his job, getting elims for the trio, sitting with 3 elims, and we're all holding on to our breaths here as we took a look at that inventory. 5 shockwaves and bouncers. The elim feed is popping off as right now we are in placement points. We're in the top 15. Can Height hold on? Last time we saw they was able to pull away from them. Shayo pointed out is that the storm did not work in the Height's favor, but Lecce, Savage, and Benji are now heating up, and they're putting words in that elim feed that's going to put everyone in boots and shaking them in right now. But as we see, the elevation will be a big factor as Stir6 is normally on the low ground, is basically on that mid-ground layer. Can Stir6 and iDrop get the elims as well to hold on to their top 5 placement?
In top 30 means no Storm Surge. Anas still on his feet as well, which means that rocket launcher still in play somewhere there. And right as I say that, Anas full eliminated. That trio going to be out there as Vadil picks up another one. Benji actually getting knocked, and Fixie is way above everything. Solo tarping, nobody looking anywhere remotely close. You see Vadil trying to get up towards the top, but not going to happen. Lecce in our bottom right as now the lone warrior. Benji and Savage has both been taken down. Zaini being our high ground representative in your top right corner, everyone else on the wide. What can Lecce do? As again, the clutch opportunities in Europe have been huge. We're into the top 10, 23 players remaining, and we're on to circle 8. The horizontal shockwave sending Lecce out and forward. There is a contestation coming up on Zaini, but he's doing a good job defending himself, and Zaini is still way up and above, but it's all about the plays here, Sancho, as we close in on the final moments.
Mongrel goes down, Sursix goes down. Lecce is using all those shockwaves that Savage held on to. Picks up a knock on Flash Roki on your bottom right. So now he got the mega refresh that he desperately needed, considering he was down to 9 builds. Uses the last shockwave, so now he's just fighting for his lobby life at the moment as Flick, I think that was Flixie, goes down finally from his ultimate height and joins his trio. So on the top right, you have Zinni and the trio here on height. And you're looking at the overview, you're seeing the chaos as everyone's dealing with the slight change in elevation right at the moment here. And now people are getting pushed out the zone, but Lecce on your bottom right, it gets up another Elim. Can Lecce do it? Down to 7 HP? No, Lecce is out.
Lecce goes down, but you can see here, Fixie Caspera still just running out the high ground, and while the zone didn't 100% pull for them, it didn't do enough to prevent them. They've been dominant from the high ground, and they'll keep doing that, riding it out. Vadil did enough to ride his way to a second place, but we saw them in every single endgame, and now with 5 eliminations, E11's Fixie, Trick Caspera, and Zaini take home match number 3.
And this trio did not even qualify. They got it through series of cumulative points. What a story that we got to keep an eye on. Let's kick it to the analyst desk.
Just the craziest story I can possibly think of at the moment. To not even make it to a round 3, to make it through on series points, and to get the victory royale. We have to take a look at the standings. Guys, this trio is absolutely ridiculous. Also, they come into this end game like with the craziest high ground. Fixie's sitting all the way on high ground, and then eventually it's like, you know what, we're coming back over old builds. I'll tell you what, I'll crash pad down. Don't even worry about it, guys. We're just gonna chill. They're finding themselves here up in second place. Now, do keep in mind, we like to talk about this consistency factor, balancing both. They did only get 5 eliminations, but gentlemen, still, after a game like that, to have them end this game 3 in second is probably a ton of confidence.
Yeah, playing that end game really passively. We'll get into it a little bit later after the standings, but a very unique game there from Zinni, Fixie, and Kaspersa. Over at first though, Reese, Anas, Thomas, HD, and Flick still hold the throne, and I feel like Heat 1's the only place that's happening.
It is the only place it's happening so far, but, you know, these guys have played their games very, very well. That last game, you know, not being so consistent despite managing to pick up that rocket launcher earlier on, which, you know, a bit rare for the tournaments, but it did happen. So, you know, they've been playing very, very good. A little bit less consistency already, like I have said, but still great, still holding that first place slot. Over to the next page, 6th to 10th. Remember, it's 8 people who qualify through to the grand finals, so that cutoff is currently 30 points.
Yeah, Styler, WK, and their trio, 19 eliminations, the most on this page, rivaled with some of the teams that are on that first page as well. The kind of thing that we're seeing right now between 6th and 7th, 8th to 10th, is a tie game. 44 to 42 points, 30, then 29, 29, 29. It's like everyone here has a rival. Everyone has one team they want to face, whether it's between first and second, between Anas and Fixie, or between any of these teams on this next page. 24 to 22 points, Reese. It is really close in this heat.
It's very 2 points between 11th and 15th. It's very, very, very close. In 15th, you know, last game we looked at Lolboom, Nico, and Snowda here. Unfortunately, they didn't end up performing again. I think these guys are contested off spawn because game 1 they went down 28th, and this game they went down 31st. So if these guys can figure out that early game and get that in the next 3 games today and 6 games tomorrow, you know, these guys are making it very far into endgame when they do. So I'm looking to see them kind of climb that leaderboards more. Just that early game needs a little bit of work.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that 100% in terms of teams like Blaster and Mexi's trio as well. Like, these guys are playing okay with 19 total points, 17 total points, but they're gonna have to find all the mistakes they're making, fix them these next 3 games. Is very crucial. So the next 6 tomorrow are brand new, fresh, played under new plans that get them the most amount of points possible for the top 8.
And we can't forget, a lot of these games are going to be within a self-contained meta, right? They're coming from round 3 where they had to play differently, and now they have to come here and swap up. Maybe it's contesting, maybe it's a different drop spot. A lot of factors at play here. Now, guys, we have to run back the game. There's a lot of really incredible things that happened that whole game, starting with Flick.
Yeah, you're talking about like unique meta per heat. This man fishes a shark, so Thomas and Anas can easily shoot it down, and then they find an RPG.
Oh my god, I can't with these guys, bro. Oh, they managed to get the RPG. Oh my lord. Classic by Vidil. I saw Twitter blow up about this, and they do actually manage to get Mongrel up later on with a reboot, and use that rotate in the mid game using the Mark 51 cars, like is very, very standard from Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson.
And as Vidil actually uses the momentum from that fight, from that mid-game engagement to go towards height and the rest of the game, the 9th zone almost that just does lock in, he just goes on a tear with shockwaves that take down eyedrop after a few good knocks and eliminations. After that, just surviving overall. He goes down all the way till those final moments, but just takes out people pump after pump. A 220. My goodness. Here's the context though. Fixie at that start of the game was all the way on height. He was letting low ground play however it wanted. It was Zinni and Kaspersa that were kind of being the distractions. Fixie comes down at the last second behind all trios, picks up major eliminations, and covers for Zinni in the trio to get the final elimination.
And these guys, like we've kind of mentioned already, have not made a single round 3 yet. But that to me kind of suggests that they're not huge fraggers, because, these 3 games, they've managed to get 6 eliminations at their max, but their placement has been an average of 3. So trying to get into the average top kind of 33 people to qualify for round 3 is very, very difficult without this big kind of pop-off game. So I think if we saw these guys get to a round 3, we would have seen them do well.
Yeah, and then
I'd like to see it. Oh, sorry about that, Shai. I was just going to shift gears a little bit. Remember how we did a check-in on heat number 2, gentlemen? Let's check in with heat number 3, see how things are going over there. Hen, Deceptos, Putrick. They're locked in a battle right now between Andalex, Janice, and is that Squeeze, right? Duck on top.
It is.
You gotta love when they change their names. But right now, a head-to-head battle at the end of their game number 3. Don't forget, it is the top 8 trios that will be pushed on Grams, and then 9 through 16 is entering the wild card match. Kind of similar story as far as points overall go here.
Yeah, and Andalex, Janice, Squeeze, big team. They picked up that victory in week 3, and they just won that last game there with 13 eliminations. The one before that with 5th with 6 eliminations. So really good placements out of them so far. So we're going to see them hopefully continue that up, because they've been a good pick of mine all the way through.
Yeah, they're holding on because in first place, in terms of game number 2, they were still at that top spot. So they're battling and winning, but as you mentioned, Zeke, it's a 1-point difference. And as you mentioned too, all these heats have their separate metas, right? So it's crazy to watch. You can go for either or each and every single one. It's getting intense in so many different ways.
Oh man, this is what I like to see. But Fortnite fam, we're 3 games down. We've got 3 games left to go. What we're going to do now is go to a break. But when we return, we'll have the last 3 games, a few more check-ins, and then we'll be on to NA East. So go get yourself hydrated, and we'll see you guys in just 5.
What's going on, Fortnite fam? Reset back with another video, and in today's video I want to cover height. We're going to be using Zayt, Saf and Stretch as an example, and one of their games where they picked up a victory royale from Qualifier 3 Round 3 of the FNCS. Across the 12 games, these guys picked up 4 victory royales, and they hold height in an absolutely textbook way, so let's dive into that. Firstly, just for super basic, height is when you're on the very highest layer of the moving zones in endgame, and this is powerful for many reasons. Firstly, because you use the least amount of materials to traverse the moving zones, you have a ton of angles on players to shoot down on, you have the best opportunities for healing, and you only need to worry about players below you, so you don't have to cover your left, right and above, which you'll have to on low and mid ground layers. I like to categorize the art of playing high ground into 2 separate categories: claiming and maintaining. Claiming high ground does not start in the end game, it starts much earlier in the mid game, and in this game in particular, Zayt, Saf and Stretch try to claim the high ground as early as the 3rd zone. You can see them take up a large amount of space horizontally here, with Zayt and Saf building over onto another area, so they have 2 separate points of high ground. Later on in the game, when the 4th zone appears, they're not actually inside of this zone, so they wait late until other players have already built up there, and then they all shockwave over and claim the high ground there. The only reason that these guys get to the highest layer in 4th is because they'd already set themselves up on a higher layer in the 3rd zone. This allows them simply to just shockwave over and claim it. From here on out, our team's goals switch up from claiming high ground to maintaining it. Really, they're not looking for a huge amount of eliminations here. Their main goal is just to ensure they are the only ones on height. They do this by shooting at other players who have built up in other areas of the zone to around equal levels of them, and also by looking down, looking at players who are 1 or 2 layers below them, and pressuring these guys to make it seem like there's no chance that they're going to claim height over Zate, Saf, and Stretch. You can see that the 5th zone is almost max distance from where they are now, so this is where Zate, Saf, and Stretch are going to need to start claiming the high ground again. Zate hits a beautiful snipe on one of the opposing players at the opposite height, so this is an immediate flag that our team should now just go and grab that height, because these guys are going to be on the defensive, trying to pick up the res on this teammate, and aren't going to be focusing on maintaining that high ground. What Zate does is he actually shockwaves over to another layer of builds and then builds out into the zone to create a different area of high ground. Then, once this is solidified, Saf and Stretch both then come over onto this high ground, and then Zate actually goes over to the other layer of high ground where he sniped the player and builds up here. This is exactly the same thing we saw in the 3rd zone, where they've claimed 2 separate layers of high ground. They do this because they give absolutely no opportunities for any other team to take high ground at this point. So in the 5th zone, these guys have this completely locked down. At this point, because these guys have claimed 2 separate layers of high ground, it doesn't matter which way the zone pulls, as these guys already have claimed all of the high ground layers. In all honesty, this is the hardest part done. These guys have good materials still left, and now they just need to ensure that they maintain height all the way through the moving zones. The main threat that they have is players using their shockwave grenades to fly up and take height from them. So the way that they defend against this is by having one player on what we call ultimate high ground. In this game, in the first few moving zones, this is Zate. He stays up 3 or 4 layers above to ensure if anyone shockwaves up, he doesn't get knocked out. This allows him to spray any players at contesting and really take control of that high ground. And at the same time, you can see Saf move further ahead of the zone and spray backwards at players down below, while Stretch stays on the same layer as Saf and just consistently applies pressure to all the players below. You continue this form up until the 9th zone, the final moving, because this is when the heal off is going to need to happen. And you can see that Saf throws his white heals, which is medkit, up towards Stretch so that Stretch can stay on the ultimate high ground where Zate was instead. And then if this game goes down to a heal off, he can stay on the ultimate high ground, heal with the medkits, while Zate and Saf are on the low ground, completely trying to frag out and distract the other players who are alive. Zate ends up completely popping off on low ground and picking up the victory royale, meaning they didn't end up needing to use those medkits to heal off. However, if Zate didn't manage to pop off here and the 9th zone ended up closing, they would have won this either way. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned a lot. I've been Resub. See you in the battle boss. Beep beep.
Welcome back to the FNCS. We are 3 games in to the first day of heats here in EU. I cannot be more excited, and I know what you guys want. You guys want some more games. Don't worry. We'll be back here as soon as the game is done to break it all down. But for now, let's send it over to our casters, Sundown and Sancho S, to take us into game number 4. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Zeke, and we're going to hop right on board here with game number 3 winners. My name's Sundown, joined here by Sancho West as we head into matches 4, 5, and 6 of Europe here in heat number 1. Don't forget the other heats are going on. Then after this, we'll take a little bit of break, and the NA East action will be all over now because we did have a little bit of that break. We're hopping in midway through. This is zone number 1 closing right now, Sancho.
and we taking a look at the mini map, you see that it's going to be a very centralized zone as 1 and 4 kind of go center and center, and already zone 1 has revealed itself dead center of the island as we're on here in Ant Manor, and this is kind of metaphor to their run. This small trio that's coming out of nowhere is blowing up right in front of us here, getting to that 60 feet stature size. Already second place here in day 1 of Heat 1. Just taking a look at their overall performance, as Reese said, an average placement of 3rd, 4.6 in elims. So they're not doing this with an aggressive elims. They're doing this by just getting to in-game and surviving.
Yeah, just finding your space. That's what Battle Royale is all about. And you can see the placement points. We've talked about it. That top 3 is so loaded with them, and the fact that they're averaging inside of that means they're always getting that little extra slice of the pie. You know, it's that one little fat piece that was right there, and you're like, yeah, that one's a little bit bigger. Maybe it's got a little more icing, or like, at least for me, it was like, I was always the one, it was like, it's not looking for where the name is, it's where like whatever the decoration was had the most dense of the icing on there. That's what I was all about. It's like, give me that slice. They've been getting that in terms of the placement, and it's been making up for it. However, as we've noted before, with those consistent teams who don't necessarily have that elimination potential, one game slipping up can end up costing them so much. So we're going to keep an eye on that top left, and if we see them go completely out, that's kind of a red flag.
Already we're seeing red flags with Savage, Lecce, and Fishy. Benji's trio is just at 9th place at the moment, so it's not full DEFCON 5 type, all men on board, on deck type of situation. But I think Mongrel, we've been talking about the Fortnite community, Mongrel's going full demon here. He's all demon out, as Mongrel has more elims by himself than 82% of the teams in the qualifiers, just showing how vital he is for him to stay on his feet and to be alive, of course.
I mean, he's just the kid is freaking good. He is good at Fortnite. He is good at pressuring other people. He is good at eliminating them. There is no part of his game that he is necessarily bad at when it comes to mechanics. The weakness when it comes to Mongrel happens to end up being the overplay and the aggression stuff that comes from mental, where if he gets knocked out early a couple of times, it can really affect his game. We saw that back in Season X with the MMB trio, Mitro, Mongrel, and Benji, when they got ambushed over there at the mall and ended up eventually getting taken out. It's just the retail row was so strong at that time, but because somebody game planned, were able to get in their head a little bit, it made it that much harder. As we see, Storm Surge is going to tick on, but these guys, no worries about it, as they've already wiped a trio up here. Mongrel sitting on a pair of elims and Mitro with the other.
Mongrel has 6 shockwaves in his inventory. We saw Savage with 6 as well in this match and the previous one, as they're going to go ahead and convoy, roll out together using those awesome Tony Stark whiplashes. The mock proving it to actually be vital for actually picking up Mongrel, as we did see him go down early for this early aggression. He was able to get rebooted, as this strong trio, who's currently sitting in our 4th place with an overall great performance, an average of 5th place, average of 4.6 elims. So Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson so far are doing really well. They're just waiting for that other kind of like victory royale. They got at least 7+ victory royale going into heats, so they're definitely due for one here soon.
You can see Mitro and Mongrel in the back one of the Mark 51s there, as it reads on the license plate, actually taking a little bit of fire, and that one's going to get popped, cost Mongrel a little bit of his shields, but they should have more than enough utility. Tayson still wheel bound right now, and they're going to see how long they can at least keep one of those cars up as they continue the rotation, trying to head center zone. And nope, instead just going to drop that one off, say this is drawing way too much attention, as we pull over to the Sentinel graveyard yet again.
And we're going to see another finish at the Sentinel, as we're seeing another little mini engagement that kind of happens here in this tunnel. We mentioned this earlier in the broadcast, how it's just something where people set up ambushes, and you can just see how congested it can be in tight quarter, and all the box fighting skills come into play, as Blaster, though, is getting beamed as the lobby focuses. Look at that mini map there, Sundown. You got 2 triangles of trios looking into this direction, trying to pop as many shots into these fresh builds as possible, and they did some nice tags. As we see in Blaster as well in the inventory, does have a lot of shields, and also the peppermints, because the trick-or-treat season is alive. Is he interested to see how he uses those peppermints to his advantage, because they kind of work as peppers. But now we're taking a look as Deja Vu, Beto Vedal, iDrop, and Stir6 sitting in a strong position just inside here in this Sentinel Graveyard section.
Yeah, they'll have one more center rotation when the 4th zone does come out, but as of now, sitting absolutely pretty. They'll have plenty of shots, and this is a very steep drop-off towards the backside of this, and you can already see there's a number of teams who are going to be forced to rotate past them, and considering they're only 115 above the Storm Surge on the right side, 6 players need to go down. They're in a spot where, not only can they find some tags, they're going to find some elims, and as they talked about it, keeping an eye on the top left corner, Tayson got a knock onto Ziny. Mitro confirms that over, so that full trio, which when we've seen them averaging the top top 3 placement the entire time, has now had one of their members go down. How well can they play in a 2v3 situation, and can they recover? As Stir6, Vedal, and Co. are finally going to be able to tick that one over. That's Lolboom also getting picked up there, so that trio being completely cleaned up.
Stir6, Vedal, and iDrop, this is where they know these rotations very well. If you take a look at their VOD reviews and all those kinds of things, or replays, they kind of navigate this area using the rifts as much as possible to get the center, and they just have a great fundamental way of just kind of gatekeeping, working together, beaming together, and that is where they pick up a lot of early to mid-game elims as much as possible. And now we're going to see into somebody who just squeaked their way into this, qualifying just in the last week 3, coming in at number 15, I believe, with 7tor, Fremont, and Link. And these are the kind of ones that I want to keep an eye on, because it's always the people that come in at the very end, those last trios, this last solo or duo comes in at that last spot, could walk away and get the whole championship. I'm taking a look at where they're kind of coming in right now. They're still in the back of the pack, only the top 8 advanced, so they got some work to do. And I'm going to just take a look here. Yeah, they're sitting around the 20s here, so Sundown. So this is an opportunity. The good thing is they got 12 games to work with.
You can see Shockwave coming out, and they're going to begin that rotation. But 7tor got split off, and he might have gotten isolated there for a second. But just before we zoomed in there in the elimination feed, we actually saw Kaspersa pick up player number 71 to turn off the Storm Surge. However, he was then player 70 eliminated. So now both him and Ziny have been completely cleaned up. So that trio just down to one solo member now, as Link and Artur continuing to put some pressure on the backside. Storm also playing a little bit of a benefactor there. You did hear that player tick over, but they didn't get any of the credit. It seemed like it was Melee on the backside who was able to get that one, and it was, as WKey is able to find him there as well. Neko also in the Storm. So 2 different trios over here on the side. Good confirmation from Link, but no Siphon coming through because that wasn't his down. Naleon, however, just gets pre-fired almost and taken out there. So good shot from him. They'll have plenty of options to be able to tunnel back in. They should have a decent number of mats, so well executed, and even going to opt to burn a Shockwave to just say, hey, I'm not taking any excess storm damage here.
And the Cinderella story continues on for this trio, and we're taking a look at the rest of the world that is kind of unfolding here. Savage, Lechi, and Benji sitting right in front of them, so that's going to be a dangerous trio to go through. Wakey, Michael, and Snappy, Michael FN on Twitter, still up there, coming in from that Craigie Cliffside. Interesting rotation coming all the way over. And now we're going to take a look how everybody's Billy going up the mountain. The Deal trio had a strong showing early down on the bottom side, but look at the height. You're seeing everybody kind of contested, as iDrop and Vedal, who had it momentarily now because of the way the Storm rotated, had to give it up. But we saw a great video from Reese that you definitely want to check out during the break, talking the importance of height and how trios kind of jockey for position here in zones 4, 5, and 6. And I don't know if anyone else in the world does it better than Zap, Stretch, and Zate.
Yeah, Saf, Stretch, and Zate showing a phenomenal class there, and Reese doing a great job breaking it down. But now we're going to hop back on board with what I think is almost a masterclass in their ability to take height late. And I'm talking about that kind of the post 5 and 6, the ones when you go for those ultra takes, even when there is the people who are on the ultimate high. These guys tend to be able to find those necessary eliminations on the mid ground. But right now, they are 310 damage below the Storm Surge threshold. As soon as this zone closes in 30 seconds, they're going to start taking that 25 damage every 10 seconds. And they need to find not only a full a knock here, but also a conversion if they want to get outside of it. Already getting a 60 tag to kind of close in on it a little bit, but the pressure being put on them now as the Nos is knocked, and they're losing valuable time when they should be getting aggressive to try and stick a revive. And you can see Thomas is going to have to pull off of that here in a second because that Storm Surge is about to come off. You can see trying to find a little bit of a room, but instead, no, Thomas says, what am I doing? I'm an aggressive player. I'm going forward. Finds the pump into the AR swap. We're going to wait for the replay to catch up here in a second. He's got to find a second one onto M10 Karma as well. So a good job getting them above the threshold. And on top of that, they pulled the 5th zone. So if Thomas can get a Nos up, all of a sudden what was a disastrous actual DEFCON 5 wee woo, call everyone, get him over here situation, Thomas again puts the team on his back. Everyone hop in the backpack that is Gamma's Thomas HD, arguably the strongest player in the world right now, as he puts the team in there and gives them a primary position. We're going to hop over there, Vadil and co. cleaning up a clean little 3v3 there, or not necessarily a clean 3v3 now, it's a 3v2v1 as they get that elimination and a little bit more room to operate. But you can see priority for zone is on this height. It's going to make everybody who's not already in that stack so incredibly challenged.
And Nas's trio had that emergency meeting. They kind of huddled and rallied up. It just shows you how patient Thomas HD was. He was hiding behind that cone, waiting for that perfect opportunity to strike, held that wall, did the edit, and confirmed and got a 2-piece right then and there. So a strong showing from Thomas HD, showing the prowess of having Storm Surge right on their back, breathing down their neck. Tayson, Mongrel, and Mitro trying to kind of turn their fate right now. They're sitting just outside the top 4. You know, these confident players, these egos want to walk away with that #1 spot here and day one. Mongrel, Mitro, Tayson looking really strong with 5 limbs, and you mentioned it, everybody is staying as high as possible, as if the water is rising, and they're just doing their best to kind of inch their way. And look at up height is Leon's trio sitting at height right now with a great position to kind of hold on to it and maintain it the rest of the ride.
And you can see also in that top left corner, we have our top 17 trios right now. So that elimination that Mitro was able to find gave them the 2 points ticking over. We're going to hop on board here. M10 Legend, Flurixon, and Waves Cartoon with a little bit of room, but a super far pull. We are going all the way away from that height, over a mountain, not through the woods, and not quite across a river, but Grandma's house is right on the other side, and you can see everyone is beginning to tarp towards that side because nobody had the priority position, and you have a ways to go.
And here they go. They're coming around the mountain as they go, trying to find that safe zone as much as possible. And you're seeing other people taking a very clever route, using that natural terrain. This is a great rotation from Cartoon Legend and Florix, as they do find Michael right there. Bang! Down goes Michael. It gets lobbied right there, and that is showing you how so many like-minded people think alike as they cross paths with another trio. Gonna go ahead and switch layers as much as possible to get on the front side, because this is, as you mentioned, Old Man Mountain. He's not afraid to bop you. And we're seeing Leon and Centric Knights and Dasik have a great position here. But we've been seeing in the EU region, it's not like NA East. Somebody will try to contest you and overtake you at a moment's notice.
Which means, right as you talk about it, the moment's notice is now. No notice for us, indeed. We hop on board. Shockwave comes out from Tayson. A great pre-fire that comes out with the cone, cracking the shield on the high ground, but going to be forced to drop back down as they were just a little bit above the Shockwave height. Not quite able to execute on the build battle, and now with no white heals either, it's going to be incredibly difficult. However, got priority position, gets the Shockwave, and he finds the one hit. Mitro ends up picking up a Nos with a little bit of help from Tayson there. Good 1-2 combo from 2 of the best to do it. The 7th elimination gives them access to the high ground. And now what will the top trio do with it?
Oh my goodness. The 1-2 haymaker out of nowhere, knocking out our #1 spot right then and there, and the fight for maintaining height is on. It's just a matter of time. And then we mentioned the analyst desk. They have the ability to beam. Their prowess, their aim, whatever you want to call it, is so strong. And it's going to go down outside the mountain. And this is where you get dangerous, because they're going to resource a lot of that. It's going to be expended here just to hold height as much as possible. And we're taking a look here at Tayson. Mitro gets another elim. So all these double amplified bullets are going to hit those headshots and give them the necessary damage that they need. Here's a nice trio split, and we're seeing them all so aggressive, trying to stop everybody from contesting them at height.
All you hear is the sound of the ARs, the blop, 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 and anybody who comes up instantly gets sent right back down, but they're doing it in the down but not out position with mats raining from the sky as well. Nothing is scarier than when these three lords of Europe are just raining shots down on you. Tayson from E11, Liquids, Mitro, and FaZe Mongrel, just one of the absolute best, showing you how to really punish from the high ground. 12 eliminations and counting as everyone else is cowering and fighting for their lives in the build on the low ground. And now Mongrel is being unleashed to go hunting. He's in your bottom right, and you can see him there pumping to the AR swap right away. 13 eliminations coming through so far, and they're just trying to run up the scoreboard.
Here we go. This is what they do. The microwave moment. We talked about boxing like a fish. They put this entire lobby in a barrel, and they're just shooting down anybody that's contesting and racking up elims. This is the pop-off game that we were all knew that they were due, and they're doing it right here in front of us. Tayson with the extreme tracking, Mitro with the extreme beams, Mongrel going big growl at the moment, and they're going to close this door. It's a top 3 situation, and look at it. There it is. They're using crash pads to disrupt anybody down below. iDrop and Stir6 are holding on. It's a 3v2 situation. Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson in a matter of moments, but we have been seeing the coin flip over. Tayson now is on the ground. He's been sent down below alongside with Mongrel. Mitro picks up Stir6. It's a 3v1. It's a matter of moments, and yes, it is Mongrel, Tayson, and Mitro with a huge game. I'm talking big dog E game. 19 elims. Cam, oh my goodness. The pop-off, the weeboos, all the alarms are set. Ladies and gentlemen, this trio is not messing around today. Woo!
Call the emergency meeting all you want. The nuclear reactor that is Mitro, Mongrel, and Tayson went off, one elimination shy of the 20 mark, but the 19 eliminations plus the victory royale, 44 points in a single game. I'm almost positive that's the most we've seen on broadcast this season, but just what a fantastic game. And we're going to send it over the analysts to break it down.
Sundown was correct. That is the new record. 19 eliminations. We are knocking on that 20 bombs door. My goodness. Guys, we're sitting here in the back talking about this as it's all unfolding in front of us. The level of execution, the amount of cylinders you need to be firing on to just have the ultimate control. Like, at that point, they weren't even playing Fortnite. They were playing some other game, and they're like, okay, everyone else, we're playing some other game, and you're going to have to come play the game we want to play, so you guys just lose. Absolutely ridiculous. Here we go. Taking a look at the standings, we've got the trio, Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson coming in first place. They've got the 98 points. They've closed that gap that there was before with this incredible 44-point game. But you still have Flick, Anasa, Thomas HD right behind them.
Yeah, they're learning, honestly, the way they even kind of executed that height takedown for the whole lobby past there all the way in the 9th zone. But Vidil, Kylie, and Fastroker are still here in 3rd. Zinni, Fixie, and Kaspersa still in 4th, right behind these guys. Yes, now it's a little bit more of a point difference, more than 20, but it's the same teams then in the top 5. They just switched around, Reese.
They are, Kaspersa, Zinni's team there, didn't have the game that they really needed. The games before that been very, very consistent, but because they're not picking up these big eliminations, one game that doesn't get them any points, it's going to put them behind a little bit here. But a pop-off we did see there was Cartoon, Florix, and Legends. They played very, very well that game, getting up to 3rd place with 5 elims. Really, really good. These guys' consistent placements have been very, very good as well. But again, it's the same kind of thing. Not able to get these big elimination games, so they're kind of just sitting around that 6th place at the minute.
On this next page, we see Benji, Savage, and Lechi actually elevating. For once, they were all the way near 19th every time he checked in with them. This time, though, 11th. So once again, learning from those mistakes, taking these next 3 games to formulate a game plan, I hope. But just look at the points right now. It is still tied between them and the 12th place team of Dasic, Knight, and Leon Flares. Past that, too, 34 points to 31, a 3-point difference between 13th and 14th. All the way here to the next page where it gets even closer, Reese.
Yeah, and again, some of these teams that we've already talked about here, not performing too great today. That's been 4 games so far, 2 more today, 6 more tomorrow. It's top 8 qualify through. So any of these teams that we've just looked at here can easily qualify, no problem at all. But they really need to kind of start picking up the slack on these other few games that they've got coming up.
And we've seen in the past weeks, right? It's like you don't show up that well on day 1 or have an iffy performance, but then day 2, full stop, you're just full sending it over and finding yourself in the top leaderboard. Now, again, it's only the top 8 that will be pushed on through, so you try to make it in there because you don't want to have to go to wild card. You don't want to have to that one shot or it's a nothing, right, or all or nothing. Now, guys, talk to me about this last game because I just can't believe the amount of high ground control these guys had. They had eliminations, they had high ground, and they just walked it through the victory royale.
Yeah, from the past 2 games, all the mistakes other teams were making, these guys were making none, and they actually started taking high ground themselves. Tayson on the forefront, Mitro getting shots off all the pressure he's creating, and then they just beamed.
And that's it. This is what this team's been doing well that the other teams on Height have not been doing. These guys picked up 19 eliminations. They have 10 already, which means they get another 9. I don't think any of the other teams who've taken Height have even got 9 eliminations in their entire game so far. So these guys are doing something right that other teams aren't.
Yeah, these guys are split apart so you can see a little pool that's open in the very middle of their tarp where Flick just went up and through, got denied, so shockwaves will not work on them because of the split. Past that, they're focusing on beaming walls more so than pyramids and floors. It actually catches people off guard, gives people like Tayson, Mongrel, and Mitro more of a chance to combine their beams and sprays, and they just keep landing shots. Even Mongrel focusing on mid-ground more than people on absolute low. They just keep landing more elims after elims.
They do. And if you guys are not training your aim with your AR yet, come on, guys. Come on. This is his proof right here. You see what is happening. You see what is going on right now. But it's the usual, their stiff setup is just having Tayson on complete ultimate high ground. Mongrel moves a bit ahead, and then Mitro is a little bit further behind. And this creates the pinch where Tayson can spray the roofs, and the other two can spray all the walls, and there's absolutely nothing you can do when every single shot hits.
And the very last moments there, they actually use crash pads to shake up low ground. Usually people are used to playing there normally. A bouncer to kind of spice things up. I mean, after that game, Zeke, we might have to reconsider, introducing that elim cap because these guys are absolutely insane.
Well, we'll have to see if that is a thing or not. But for now, guys, what we do actually have is a Heat 4 check-in. Let's see what's going on in that Heat. Remember, we have 4 Heats kind of going on all at the same time. We're tuning into Heat number 1. These are the games we're watching. Now, in Heat number 4, though, you've got Sapphic, GBRJAMIE, and Irizumi coming in that number 1 spot. They have a pretty substantial lead right now.
They do, and they've come first in the second game just before with 10 eliminations, and the game that's just happened, they came second with 10 eliminations again. So 2 really, really massive games. Unfortunately, their first 2 weren't that great, but 2 games with 10 eliminations and a first and a second is absolutely incredible.
Let's follow that theme, the theme of 2s really all over these pages. Now it goes into 3. There's teams that are tied on 2nd and 3rd. That's 2 teams just a point away from each other. 4th and 5th, it's the same thing. Now we switch over to almost 4 teams, so 2 multiplied by 2 from 6th all the way to 9th. Just like 2 points once again separated from each other. Hellfire, Buhai, and ETQ having a win too, but are still tied. So you're seeing that Heat 4 is a little bit more inconsistent. There's more pop-off plays going on. I think every Heat now has like a theme that they're owning up to, and we're seeing happen game after game after game.
Oh, man. This is the action we live for. This is what we've been waiting to see. 3 weeks of competition, and now we get closer to grand finals, closer to seeing what that top 1% looks like. I am just so excited. It is such an honor to be here alongside these 2 incredible gentlemen, and of course, you know what time it is, though. More action, more games. Let's send it back over to our casters to prep us here on the Battle Bus. Everyone, buckle up.
It's time to put your seats in the upright position and buckle in. Game 5 here with an unbelievable Game 4. I am Sancho West, and this is Sundown, and we're going to call all the action here. This is day 1 of Heat 1, and we're seeing now we're going to get an interesting zone as it's going all the way to the west coast and to the sunny side here, and we see a lot of water, and this is going to be interesting for the Mongrels and Mitros and Taysons. Interesting for the Anas Thomas HDs, because they have to go a long trek here to get into the safe zone Sundown.
Yeah, we've had 4 pretty central zones, 4 of them ending relatively towards the Sentinel area, and then 1 in upstate New York. But right now, a little bit more breathing room for those on the western side. But the western side of the map is already pretty packed, as we saw kind of in the southwest. There's already a number of teams over at Fortea and also at the Logjam area. as well as players doing scavenger routes on either side of the swamp. So as much as the zone pulling over there is nice, I still anticipate there to be plenty of bad blood going on in that area. But again, uncontested Stark Industry, Mongol Taste of Dimitro, they're going to loot up. They're going to get the best loot in the game, make sure they have maximum everything, and they're going to go hunting.
And we're seeing them almost getting that golden 20 elim game, just one elim away for putting everybody in the highlight reel. As I mentioned, they put everybody in a barrel. They kind of just funneled everybody with some strong height game. And yes, you could get height. Yes, you could hold it. You could get the victory royale. But if you could kind of bonus that up with some max elims, you're going to set yourself up for success. And they're currently sitting right now in our top spot, just barely above Flickanos and Thomas HD. Now we're taking a look at another team that's sitting in our top 10. This is 200, 200, 200. Styler and W Key with 43 points. Right now they came in an average about 13th place. So at least they're getting the placements. But what is kind of separating them is their 5 elims. But so now we're seeing that it's important to get the elims at in-game because we kind of mentioned it's a little bit of a bonus considering you are doled out a placement point, especially in that top 3 and top 2, and of course the victory royale.
Yeah, being able to kind of get those additional opportunities to have encounters is something we've talked about time and time again. It's what makes those placement points that much valuable. And if you're able to kind of just get placement points almost every single game, get a couple eliminations here, you're going to climb up. You're going to have those opportunities to have one of the big games. But right now, all of a sudden, the ambusher becomes the ambushee as Styler is a little bit too separated from his teammates. He's actually going to be forced to burn a shockwave to move back and closer to them. Now, he does have that legendary pump. However, he recognized he was too far away where if he did get locked down and he gives that over, there's no way his team is going to be able to take that 2v3. But right as we talk about shockwaves being used, aggression comes out and Styler's going to use another one. He says, shockwave party? All right, 3 shockwaves used in total as everyone. We're just going to go to the skies right away. That's Serenity's Akusta. We saw him with a fantastic effort early on, and now he's going to shockwave back out of the fight. So this one's going to be dubbed the Clown Fiesta. Let's cue the circus music. Sancho, what do you got going on?
I'm just sitting here enjoying the popcorn, getting myself my candy apple. I'm just waiting for the rest of the zoo to show up because usually a third party likes to kind of peek on in. But you just got to know, these are the kind of fights that you want to kind of have to take to condition the rest of the way. We're sitting so close to the halfway point. At this point, these trios have been colliding every single time. And I know what it feels like to set yourself up for an ambush and all of a sudden you go for that juicy flank steak and they just collapse on you, as right now as W Key and Styler are trying to collapse on site. But you got to be worrisome. The only, I think why they're taking this fight here, Sundown, is because the zone pulled their way.
No, I feel like you talked about their 5 eliminations. I'm almost positive their eliminations in these games as well were on the other 2. Akusa was the one who was able to make them pay a little bit beforehand, but it seems like they've been actually picking out and isolating Sipe, particularly in these engagements. He is almost always the first one to go down and be picked off in this fight. Dezinho generally ends up being kind of right after that or the last one holding out. But they've now won this fight, I believe, 3 out of the 5 games. So adding in another 3 eliminations there, that's going to push them that much farther ahead. And for the teams who are looking at the bubble, yes, if you're not getting those massive placement points, those early eliminations and winning those trio wipes are so huge. But now we're on board here. We talked about them getting going. It's Savage, Benji, and Lecce. They were able to climb up a little bit there, and now we're seeing some more aggression out of them as Lecce picks up an Elam here, and they look to close out the 2v3.
And then we're getting word that 200-200 is Maestro, and WK is Insar. So we'll do our best to keep that in tabs, but this trio is doing their best to withhold and hold off, but it's just a matter of moment. We've seen this push before that Benji, Lecce, and Savage tend to make. They go up north quickly, and these are the outside fights that we're always going to see one trio be the aggressive, knowing that they feel confident to take out that trio. It happens all the time. Sweaty Sands tends to push out towards that castle. Anytime you land on that POI, you kind of go after the scavenger routes, knowing that you have stronger weapons to deal with. And here's another reoccurring fight they've been watching here in Lazy Lake with Knight Leon, and I'm trying to figure out who's the other. Yes, and Jachu Paco. This is all the time just happening, and these are kind of things that you're gonna have to go into for the halftime, for that day, from day 1 to day 2. You're gonna try to kind of game plan and figure out a way to solve these issues that you're having here that essentially are stopping you and hurting you from advancing into the grand finals.
So this is really weird to me almost, because we saw the Auto World duo with Jachu and Paco plus Advise. They were executing on kind of the Ghost Sentinel scavenger split. However, that's where Zestin and his trio are currently landing. So they've been forced kind of out of their home, and now they're trying to find, it feels like, almost a secondary scavenger route or a POI to go contest. I don't know if I agree with that game plan. I feel like if you're contested on a scavenger route and it's not necessarily a top trio, you either go find another clean scavenger route because you're already playing that type of rotation, or you come up with a game plan to isolate in 1v3 one of those guys on the scavenger route. But as we talk about it now, we're going to hop on board here with MCK and his trio. Teammates Richard Slat, and MCK, currently in 7th, are making their first Heats appearance ever. So on pace right now to be making those grand finals, running a route just outside of Slurpee. It's one of those kind of southern mountain routes that end up rotating, hitting some fishing spots, but doing a good job of just racking in the consistency points, getting the placement points where they can, utilizing that, and then turning it into more.
And the difference from a scavenger route and POI is to kind of break that down a little bit. The scavenger route, you're not going to go to POIs. You're mainly going to hit the landmarks. You're going to find those chests, those henchman chests that are kind of hidden in the bushes. You're going to kind of make your way, slowly gain your loot, slowly get your mats. The only danger that you run is someone may surprise you who is coming out of a named POI that does have stronger loot, that does have powerful weapons, could take you out quickly. And they basically just take all that hard work that you scavenge out away from you and absorb all that. So now we're seeing Legend Cartoon and Florix looking good. 50 points. That's going to be a strong performance. That's put them into our top 6 currently. And they have the tools. They got the shockwave. My concern going in is the power weapons. And that it was sometimes taking a scavenger route leads to you just don't have the strength going into these congested zones. You don't have the strength going in game, and you're gonna have to solve that part as well. Is you have to figure out, where can I get this upgrade, where can I get the power weapon, because the moments we've been seeing, the pre-fires, all that, literally 1 second you have that opportunity to sundown to capitalize on someone's mistake.
And sometimes it's less than a second. Sometimes it's, we talk about it, the pre-fire, where you think somebody's going to end up poking out of a box. But as we talk about it, Mr. Pre-fire himself going down there in the elimination feed. That's Mitro being eliminated from the match. So unfortunate for him there, as now everyone else continuing along on his rotation as we switch right on board here. That's Link finding a huge snipe on the Kaspersa, who is in this tower. It looks almost by himself. And Link, yes, going to be able to find it, and Kaspersa gets taken out. So we talked about that most consistent trio, but what happens to them when other players end up dropping down? Last game was the first time we had seen it happen, and they ended up walking away with only a singular point in 21st. So now Kaspersa getting taken down. That's going to probably force the Danish trio farther down the leaderboard.
And they're slipping. They were sitting in the top 3. Now they're outside of it. It's just showing you the spotlight that once you're kind of popping off, all our competitors have access to the leaderboard. They'll take a look at it and they'll see, like, okay, who is this trio? What are they doing? Are they playing passive? Because we all pointed out that they're just getting a lot of their points through placement and not elims. And once they kind of figure you out, you're going to have to adjust. You're going to have to figure something out quickly, or you're just going to keep slipping out of that top 8. Mongrel, Tayson, and Michiro, now they're just Mongrel and Tayson all by themselves. They figured something out before, considering they're now in first place. But now they have to figure out how they're going to go be ahead and capitalize on their strong leaderboard position, and they have to do that without Mitro.
Oh, that's super unfortunate then, because you see Mitro's body not in there. That indicates it was a disconnect. So very unfortunate, but don't forget, it is all online competition happening at home, as well as the production going on. So there are instances where that will happen, and I'm more than confident in those players' abilities to clutch up in the situation. But somebody who needs to be clutching up, or their tournament lives are on the line, and not necessarily a situation they're used to being in right now.
No.
Savage, Benji, and Lecce, they're used to falling behind kind of in the first couple games, and then they really start to pick it up. They haven't really had that signature moment. They've gotten some points here or there, but now aggression coming out, sideways shockwave setting in, and the ambush is on. Boxed like a fish by Mr. Benji Fishy himself. The shots come out, him and Lecce, 1-2 punch, and Nikeva going to be sent back right there, and there's not an arrow in sight. His teammates are those green arrows on the right-hand side. They are nowhere close, so Nikeva punished for trying to get some of that excess metal down by the shipping crates.
Yeah, and it looks like, they're kind of shaking off the issues of that mid-game, the 5th and 6th zones. That's where they're kind of rending that wall. So we're going to see if they hit that wall going forward. I mean, they are turning up. They are turning the aggression, though, on those scavenger routes. You see those people on the outside, on those landmarks. So they're trying to figure that out and maybe get some of those easy alien points for themselves to kind of get their footing going, as we're seeing the kind of shakedown that's happening as the top of the board, as Zini going down, getting knocked. So that's going to leave Flixie all by himself at this moment. And Flix, I mean, this is where we notice, man. You've been playing placement heavy, but once everyone figures you out, they're going to push you, and they're going to test their mettle.
Yeah, and Fixie here in the 1v3 situation, we talked about it, kind of the danger of not relying on the consistency, but being based upon it, right? As soon as you start getting dropped down, it becomes that much more difficult. Now we're going to hop on board here for Strokey, Kylie, and Vadil setting up a shockwave, trying to get as far center into this 3rd zone here. They're right on the edge, and they want the best possible chance of pulling the outer edge of the 4th zone to set them up for the 5th zone, half in, half out. So they're going to wait a second here, wait till the rotation comes out, set up the bouncer. Shockwave comes through. They're relatively close to each other, not too far out, so they should be happy with that. They're going to base up centrally and then just kind of wait.
Clean rotation right there. Only one shockwave, one bouncer, and they're looking very mighty nice, sitting very close to the center. And those are the kind of rotations that you want as a trio. You want to hold on to your mobility, not use that much material. If they would have separated, you would have seen them kind of use up a lot, but you kind of get on their foot. They walk right to the center. Nice simple base, and as well as they kind of have some natural terrain to protect them, so additional sightlines to deal with. They just have to make sure someone like a Versus here, they could kind of beam them down. Now all the teams are kind of making their way into the safe zone. We're going to see as much as possible where it all goes.
And now you talk about seeing as much as possible. As we zoom back on in, Mongo Tayson, nice little bit of real estate, nobody necessarily around them right now. You can see Snappy, Wakey, and Co. Some of you have been a little bit quiet. The Godsend Trio haven't necessarily had the performance we're used to seeing out of them as of late. They're over there on the side. You can see Jake-Eye, Serenity, Swaps, and Versa there. So now we're going to pan on over, kind of getting a lay of the land and where players need to rotate. You can see everyone pinching in, but not committing too far centrally. Again, that's because once this 4th zone does get revealed, you want to end up being on the outside of that and trying to pull that 50-50, rather than being forced to end up potentially having a longer rotation, or at least a guaranteed rotation if you end up in the middle.
And those rotations are the most dangerous, because that's when, some people are already going to be in that 50-50. They're going to be looking for those beam opportunities. And you've seen the tracking skill that they have in the EU region. Some strong beams from Mongrel and Tayson. And now is this duo who's going to have to do it without Mitro, who had a fortunate disconnect, but at least they have zone at the moment, and they're sitting good. Taking a look at their utility, they got 6 crash pads. Taking a look at their power weapons, they have a blue pump, which, you could get a really good critical shot with that headshot. No doubt they were looking for that upgrade. But I think more importantly is they're going to play the position game, knowing that they want to hold on as much as possible, considering they're a duo and not a trio.
E11's Fixie going down there, the last member of that trio. And we talked about the slide and the potential for it with those consistent based top teams. 21st in 1 elimination, 25th in 0 elimination. That's 1 point in 2 matches for those of you keeping score at home. And here the points are not made up. They very much so matter. Everybody is looking for a ticket to that big dance. And right now, 2 points off of breaking triple digits here from what are our current leaders after their 44-point gargantuan victory royale last game.
And now you're seeing the competitors already, they're in this congested area here. When the half in and half out pulls, it's going to pull around that white circle. So it's either going to favor the congestion part or the few trios that are sitting on that top right of your screen there in the northeast. And this is those moments here. It's going to be a very clean in game, not a lot of crazy elevation. Now, these little hills could tend to create mountainous problems for our trios here. And that is the job of the in-game leaders, the ones that kind of navigate, to kind of lead the charge, to build, to tarp out, to control the mobility rotations that you're going to see here. Now, we're going to maybe see as they're just on the outside here. Got about 33 seconds before we get to the half in, half out. Looks like Storm Surge is up in 265 above, so they're looking good. 14 players have to go down before the Storm Surge is over. And, you know, on these rotations, Sundown, a lot of players tend to go down because it gets so chaotic. And these mobility rotations are not as clean as the launch pad days.
They're not as clean. You need to make sure you spend the time executing on those as a team. But right now, Kira & Co. looking to pick up a number of eliminations, currently sitting on 46 points, so definitely in the hunt for that top 8 spot. But the box-to-box aggression is coming out driven by that Storm Surge. It's now going to start pressuring some of those players. 14 players are above and under that surge threshold right now, but Kira & Co. finding a pair of eliminations there, pushing themselves even further above. We see the half in, half out did pull to the eastern side, so only 2 trios nearby. Everyone else going to have quite a bit of a trek. As you can still see, though, Storm Surge is coming down right now and pressuring on these guys.
And you're seeing iDrop as well on the low ground. That trio sticking together hip to hip. Kenkaira, Karma, and Naru, ooh, with a nice low ground peak, getting a big hit there on that low side. So they could be playing for height. We saw in that video package, you could make your way up and then shock your way over and kind of leech your way on the other side of height. But we're going to take a look here at Star 6, iDrop, and Vettel doing it the old school way, running on the floor, using builds to kind of tarp over themselves. And we've seen this is a deadly trio on low ground. 73 points. This is the kind of ones that we highlighted in the package, and they have not slipped off. We highlighted them, we showed them the spotlight, and they're not shriveling away. They are here, and they're doing really well here in Heat 1, Day 1, Sundown.
And they were just 10 damage above that Storm Surge threshold, but able to find a huge knock there, putting them comfortably above it. It's going to turn off, as now we have our 50 players remaining. We're closing in on the first round of placement points as well. You can see Richard Slack getting taken down there on the side, but a number of our top trios are still up. Shakedown coming through, going to guarantee they get the maximum damage against him as well, just to avoid that last one. That was MCK, and we know that Richard had also been taken out, so only one member left in that trio left to play as we transition into those full moving circles. And what we mean by that is the safe zone now every single time is going to pull completely out of the previous one, as we're going to be headed south for zone number 6.
It's going south, and there's already so many trios already sitting there. Leon, Knight, Dasik. We're going to try to figure out where they're going to go. Now we're going to take a pan out here and give them a picture to show what other neighbors they have around, as you're seeing shots going in, looking for those tags, just to see if they could steal an elim before this rotating circle. Already there is a trio at height. Mongrel losing Mitro. So it's Mongrel and Tasty here making the rotation. Didn't get any eyes there, no beams, so they're looking good. Now that they get together as much as possible, as there was an enemy build between Tasty and Mongrel. Now Mongrel is all of a sudden the chaos of all these crash pads and shockwaves has now they're separated, but Mongrel is more capable of being alone, and there it is. Tayson kind of pulls them together. Now they're going to work together as much as possible here and navigate this, only shockwaving through a couple of builds here, but a nice tag from Mongrel and a nice elim, and that is a Nos! Catching Thomas's trio on this slow rotation right there. Big time pickup from Mongrel to get at least one member of that trio out of the dance.
And the huge play from Mongrel there that Anas missed is he placed a cone kind of in that grassy little field there. So Anas got caught with his builds out, just holding edits in his hand, being like, why can't I edit a cone in front of me? Well, Mongrel with the key piece control, using it so aggressively, then editing open and then putting that AR aim to work. He's going to get dropped down again. Him and Tayson still separated, but he has more than enough tools to go play Lone Ranger. He's going to double back with him, use the shockwave. Tayson gets more than enough out horizontally, but again, a little bit of a misexecution there, as now we're into our placement points. We're also into our top 30, which means no more Storm Surge. It's straight up rotations, moving circle, in endgame Fortnite here in match number 5.
Oh my goodness, Mongrel is going for height solo. Not afraid and pays the price though. The aggression from Mongrel going for height, and you're seeing it is Benji, Savage, and Lecce. Tip of the hat to you, Mongrel, for trying to contest some of the most dangerous players, but they're trying to go ahead and get inside the top 8. They're on the outside looking in. They haven't done well at all on day 1, and now they may be taking the blueprints of Mongrel Mitro as they are sitting at height. On your bottom right, it is Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6, one of the great regional players that kind of fight really well from mid-ground to low ground. Expect them to pop off. But now we're taking a look at Savage on your top right, who is doing that blueprint lingo, that mambo right now, and beaming everybody. Can we see this height stronghold play be a deja vu play here, Sundown? It is totally possible because Benji, Savage, and Lecce can definitely execute that playbook.
And you can see Savage in your top right, then Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6 are at the front side of zone, just trying to rain down whatever shots you can. You can see you also have Exponential and Astro over there on the side. Wakey just to the side, trying to put pressure on top of him. But right now, Savage is forcing out the one challenge. They're not enough layers where they're away from the utility, but they should be more than safe as Vettel converts on another elimination. 11 players remaining, but only 5 trios left as they see him on the backside of the zone, and they're trying to clean it up. Zone's going to double back, and we have our top 4 and inside our top 10 now. 9 up, and everyone is just looking to get into the top 3. Again, bonus placement points begin at top 3. Second gets a +4, and the victory royale is +5. But right now, the story is height winning out yet again. Currently sitting on 10 eliminations. Can they make it more as Savage, Lecce, and Benji try to close out the game? And that's a huge shot on Takira, making a 2-point swing there as he goes down. iDrop gets separated and taking it out. It's a 3v2v1 Benji and Co. against Stir6 and Vital, while you have Void trying to push forward, but he gets taken out and the final 3v2 is on.
This is a huge performance from Savage, Benji, and Lecce as they're doubling their output in one game right now. And this is that pop-off. We see Mongrel pop off. Savage, Lecce, and Benji are popping off right in front of us. And it's just a matter of moments as Vettel gets sent out to the storm. And look at them. They're sitting pretty in the safe zone. And it's just a matter of time. Vettel is now trying to pop off in the heal game as Savage is going to go ahead and get sent in to try to get that tag here. It's a matter of moments as we're watching here. Can Vettel survive at this moment? I just don't think so. It's not possible unless something came out from above. Savage, Lecce, and Benji are standing tall with 13 eliminations and doubling their output for the day in just one match, Sundown.
A 38-point match is going to rocket them up the top. Vettel with a little bit of a misplay on the shockwave timing there. However, Benji is the benefactor of that with the VR.
Absolutely dope, gentlemen. It's been a great day for some Fortnite. We're now complete with game number 5, and I think there's a lot of stuff that I want to talk about here, but I feel like the standings themselves will kind of paint the full picture. Obviously, we see the trio finally pick up their VR here on the first day of the heat, but it's really not them that I want to focus on. I'm ecstatic they got the VR, but Vettel, his trio, yet again, placed second. So they may not be getting the victory royale, but Reese, they have a ridiculous average placement.
Yeah, their average placement so far is 2.75, which is just insane. An absolutely insane placement overall. Obviously, they are currently in 3rd place right now, 30 eliminations, but they obviously don't have that victory royale, and that's what Flick, Anas, Thomas HD, Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson do have, and that's kind of what's putting them out a little bit different. That's why those guys are a little bit ahead.
Yeah, this is just like insane in terms of like the different stories we have on the page. The fact that Vettel, iDrop, and Stir6 can just hang here with no VR just through consistency and be at triple digits, 100 points, just shows how well they're playing in day 1. I'm scared though, right? Sometimes you see teams have really good performances and in day 2 they kind of teeter off. So I want to keep focusing on this trio, make sure day 1 goes well, and obviously in day 2 also they have as much of a dominating performance.
Yeah, and, you know, from that game that we just saw, that victory royale from Benji's team, they were 13th before this, and they've actually jumped all the way up to the 5th place slot so far.
Wow.
So that one game was huge for them to really elevate them into the leaderboards and get them over that top 8th place where they're now in qualification range.
And don't forget about Fixie, Zinni, and Kaspersa, though. These guys were so good in those first 2-3 games. Yes, a little bit of an off moment here in games number 4 5, but it's still looking really nice with that one victory royale. Still looking really nice for that 2-day overall format. Over here from 11th to 15th, notice the points once again so much closer. Just like Benji, Savage, and Lecce did, if any one of these teams have a win or one very good game with eliminations, they can potentially jump over to the top 5 race.
They can. And, you know, in 13th, Snappy, Michael, and Wakey, very nice names. It's very easy to tell who these guys are, right? You know, there's no confusion there. These guys have not changed their name to anything that we don't understand. Great play by them.
Hey, even if we don't understand names, their names we're going to be seeing throughout all the heats. Remember, there are 4 that are going on that we might not recognize even though they're readable, right? There's so many players who are now kind of getting their story really written down in history in these heats, and it's just the first day. On the second day, we'll have even more moments, even more themes to break down.
Man, you like to see it. Now, guys, talk us back through that game. Kind of, you know, now that we got to take a step back and see the standings, paint that full picture, talk to us about how this game unfolded. Because remember, we've got 1 game left, and you want to be coming in that top 8, rather, if possible.
Yeah, this was the most unique theme, I feel like, and the most trackable one. It was all about playing together, playing in unity, staying just maybe 2 boxes apart. Savage, Benji, and Lecce did that all the way from height, focusing on triple beams on pyramids and floors, and really just dropping down pressure no one could handle.
And this is kind of a counter strategy to what we saw before with Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson. You can see the reason they're doing this, and their spacing is so close, and they're not doing those big pinches like the team we just mentioned. If you look down at the materials right now, Mr. Savage, 2 builds, and accidentally all falls all the way down before this, overextending a little bit. So because they don't have loads and loads of materials, they can't split out a ton and get all these different angles. So their spacing has to be so close, which allows them to triple spray and pick up those elims.
And we talked about staying together. There are the 3 big players in the same zone at the end. How do they really get that pressure down, though, as we watch the last walking moments of this game? You know, we're looking and talking about pinches. If there's not 2 players pinching together, going for pressure from 2 different angles, you would think that there's not enough pressure being dealt down to boxes. But because these guys triple spray down a whole side of the zone, all the trios were forced to stay in the same boxes against each other and then actually pinch each other there. So these guys make everyone else do the work, stay safe together, and then stay alive in the end game. That is the Benji, Savage, Lecce classic we're seeing in the heat so far.
Now, with 1 game left, though, the ultimate question is, can they do it again? Because, you know, we kind of saw the snapshot at the very beginning of the day, if you missed it. OCE, Asia, and ME, they all ended day 1 with, like, right around 130 points. We're on track to do that. And remember, with another 6 games tomorrow, being able to say, okay, going into day 2, I've got 130 points as a trio, I'm probably set for top 8, I would assume. So we'll have to see with 1 game left, can they do that again? Can they get the run back? Because remember, we like to talk about this a lot. It's like every interaction matters, right? So if they go in and they get eliminated off spawn, they're not going to break that 130, right? They're going to be wherever it is. That's it. They can't rack up any more points. So I'm very excited to see how they operate in this next game, especially because I feel like they've had to deal with a lot of, I don't want to say like adversity in these last few games, but it's very challenging. We're getting, the competition is just taking that much higher of a step up in difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, okay, if we're looking at the leaderboards right now, you're saying that it might not be as solid. You're absolutely right. These guys jump from like 13th all the way to 5th. It's more liquidy, right? Like any team from those 2 back pages can get a good win and then jump up. And then there's more chaos. There's another contender. So we got to be really careful and still play our hearts out if we're playing as these trios in EU.
Oh, man. Shy, I'm getting word. It's time for the last game here in EU on day number 1. So let's send it over to our casters one last time to wrap things up here in EU. Take it away, casters.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. And as they just said, this is the last game of today of heat number 1 here in EU. Don't forget, the other 3 heats are also ongoing, and we'll have 6 more matches tomorrow for these trios to try and push into the top 8. My name is Sundown, joined here by Sancho West, and we'll be taking you through the last-minute action, and we'll see who will be able to build up a little bit of momentum heading into the back half of the competition.
And one of the things to bring up here, Sundown, is the top 8 advance, of course. And taking a look at the top 8, out of the 8 trios that are there, only 3 of them have not got a victory royale. You know, it's just showing you how powerful the victory royale is here in this heat. A victory royale would pretty much solidify your chance of getting into that top 8. More than 55% of Benji's elims are within an AR compared to the EU average of 38%. So Benji choosing to fight with the distance, but I think that's just more about in-game situations, considering that once you take height, you're just beaming everybody down below Sundown.
Well, I'm also interested on whether or not that's from just particularly this FNCS or all of the FNCS, because I would say this FNCS in particular, he hasn't gotten into late games as much as he probably should have, or compared to a lot of the other EU players. They've historically been pretty much kept out of and scoring lower points, so you don't really get those opportunities to have as many as those box-to-box big eliminations. But you can see here now, Savage actually taking a little bit of fire. I'm going to assume that's either from the henchman going on or Dr. Victor Von Doom himself getting a little aggro, but he has more than enough utility across this domain to be able to work that back on up.
Yeah, you can't mess with the heroes, the Marvel heroes and villains that are out there scattered about the entire map. I am still crossing fingers for Wolverine to reign his head, to show up and cause some chaos. Of course, this is day 1 of Heat 1, game 6. We still have another 6 games to go. It's going to happen tomorrow, though, so all our competitors are going to take a break, think about what they've done, make adjustments, game plan. Star 6 and iDrops and Vettel have been making crazy adjustments. They basically qualified dropping in Lazy Lake, and now they made this adjustment of dropping down here in the Misty Meadows. They do have this completely uncontested. If they do advance to the grand finals, we've already been seeing in the other heat Sundown that they're going to have some company in that Clement trio who is doing really well in their heat.
I'm pretty sure they've played mostly a Misty Drop. They may have played over at Lazy one of the weeks, but I think otherwise most of the time they've been practicing towards here, and I think in particular for this heat, it makes sense. I think the one benefit for Misty is that if you aren't aggressively contested, if people are comfortable enough to split either a north-south or an east-west side and give up some of the fishing spots and give up a little bit, it's one of the few POIs that, because of the excess fish that are around and the excess utility, and it is central, and its access to Slurpy Swamps, that you can reasonably still have enough loot and enough shields to get out of there, but it makes it really, really, really difficult, as we are going to see what I believe is our first, like, super eastern zone pull off of the start here, Sancho.
And the tour for our top of the board continues as Flick and Nos and Gamma Gaming's Thomas HD are sitting in first place. And yes, we saw a West Coast pull in the previous game. Now we're seeing the East Coast, and that's just going to give a Nos Flick and Thomas HD a lot of time to kind of set up their kind of game plan here, find everything that they need. And this is when the zone goes into your backyard. We already seen Mongrel and Mitro kind of take advantage of that, and it's so interesting to see this right here, right now. Sweaty Sands becoming a hot spot, considering the success that 4ZR's trios had in our qualifiers. And we see Kaspersa, Zini, and Flixie, they're doing their best to try to stop the slide that they're having right now. They were in the top 3, and they're slowly sliding down into that danger bubble area. And they're in the 6th place at the moment. And I'm just looking at a way, they're like 10 places away from slipping out of the top 8, like 10 points.
Yeah, and it seemed like such a fairy tale story. Again, they were second after the second game, kind of third after that third, and then just
they had a victory royale.
Slowly falling down. And it makes it that much more difficult. And now fighting here in Sweaty Sands, but that's Versa, and we've seen they have plenty of troubles getting out of this early game. Shakedown coming through, as well as the damage to make sure they end up getting all of that Storm Surge. It's something we've talked about. Have to min-max when you're given the ability to, because we've seen teams be put under pressure from it. So a little bit of room to breathe. That's so far the first point they have scored since their elimination 3 games ago. So, I mean, they need to kind of step it up a little bit if they want to stay onto that top 8 pace, because particularly once we get into the games tomorrow, that's where all the pressure lies. If you're not able to get into that top 8, then your last chance is that wild card match. And I promise you, no one wants to end up fighting in that wild card match where you can end up potentially against someone who has the capability of doing what Mongrel does. And that stat's gross, Sancho.
Absolutely. When Mongrel gets at least 4 elims, he wins 90% of his games. And to kind of reflect that stat into other sports, that's like saying if, you know, LeBron James gets a triple-double in any of his games, then most likely his Laker team will win. I'm not quite sure what's the kind of analogy for across the pond there. You might want to help me out there, Sundown.
I would say if Messi scores a brace, then Barcelona probably wins in 90+% of their games. There you go. For a brace, for those of you who don't know, that's 2 goals in soccer. So one short of a hat trick, because I promise you, if Messi scores a hat trick, they probably win, like, the stat goes up to like 90+8%. But Mongo very close to that Messi-esque feeling in Fortnite, the one who, no matter what the tables are, whether it's the solo World Cup qualification and the huge clutch he did there, or those mid-ground kind of runs he does in those monumentous moments, if he is able to get the momentum rolling and he's kind of feeling himself and he has that confidence, he is straight up potentially the most dangerous and skilled player in Fortnite. But now we're going to hop back on board here. Benji, Lecce, and Savage, they're going hunting again, but not necessarily catching the same fish they caught the first couple of times. They're going to have to go a little bit more northern for their catch.
Absolutely, and maybe LeBron James should change his name to LeBron Games. I mean, I know he's King LeBron, but LeBron Games sounds awesome. As Savage and Benji and Lecce are trying to put the games together already with a monumental victory royale that's kind of shifting the tide. They doubled their output for the day in just one pop-off game. And we know every trio out here has those pop-off moments, and we're all twiddling our thumbs. I mean, Shia was scared, and he was saying he was nervous. I was scared. Sundown, you were saying, nah. These boys got it. And right now, they're showing and proving to let everybody know, especially out there in the Twitterverse, chill. We got this, bro. We got this.
And Nikeva just got absolutely worked. Granted, Benji used the shockwave to get over to the other side. They're going to make sure they get the pickup, the shakedown, and the extra. Nope, not even going to bother to shake down Nikeva. They said, we know where you are. Not going for the max damage, but Benji got over to the other side, boxed him in right away, made sure he owned the roof, both the walls, edit 150 in the back. I'm not even sure Nikeva knew he was there, so just completely taken advantage of. But now Toby and his partner are going to be forced back here. A little bit of gatekeeping action going on, trying to use hard mats and going up into Savage, but you're not going to win that build fight anytime soon. And honestly, this seems like a futile effort. Just pack it in, hoping to stay as long as they can. But Toby eating shots now. Caxi trying to get over, get into the zone, and offer his partner whatever reprieve he can. But they're already using hard mats to get in there. He eats back to back headshots from Savage in the high ground. But Savage gets dropped down by Toby. But nope, Benji to the rescue. It's fine. No full conversion over. 3 elims coming out from Benji Fishy himself, and he gives you a little bit of the emote too, letting you know that sometimes you got to roll with those punches.
Yeah, he's saying, say it ain't so. It is so for Benji's trio. They're looking really strong. I just can't believe that it took them this long. I mean, we talked about a slow start, but goodness, this is a game 5 situation. This is the last game, and they finally turn it up there into 5 and going into 6. So what? Hey, better late than never. I always say. At least they're here to play, and they're gonna.
Hey, we're the halfway part of the competition, man. We're heating up. We're good. We're right. We're in the cream. We're in that center filling right now. We got plenty of time. If this is the story arc, like, we're still in the rising action. All right, we got plenty to go on. We're not at the climax. Not quite the denouement. No, we got time. They're there. And like we said, traditionally, they're a little bit of that slow starter. They're that novel you kind of got to chew into. They're that horror movie where you don't really kind of get that first jump scare or that first peek of the villain until you're like 15 minutes in. But then when he really ends up getting in there, you're like, oh, this was worth the wait, because you know what? These guys are scary once they finally show up on the big screen. But another trio who has been scary from moment one. This is no delay in terms of the jump scares. They're right in the horror villain behind the door, and it's a Nos, and he's in your box, he's in your closet, he's jumping in there, and he's sending you back to lobby. Nurix is going to enjoy the rest of his day.
You're getting
from
me
that
scared.
screen.
You're getting me scared. I know Halloween's just this weekend, but you literally gave me goosebumps talking about the villains and all the monsters out there. And we're talking about some of the biggest monsters, and you think that you may have beaten them. You think that you get the day's win, but you always got to double tap Benji, Lecce, and Savage, because they're always going to come back up, and they're always going to fight to the last moments here. No matter when it happens, it is happening right here and right now, and they're trying to turn it up here in game 6. Wow, 79 points. It's just like, what happened there from like game 1 through 4 doesn't even matter anymore. They could get the job done in 2.
Well, it's the same thing, and particularly if you're contested at Dooms every single week, you're not really worrying about Storm Surge because you're either winning the fight and you're clear of it, you're losing the fight and you're back in the lobby, or you're fighting each other so much that you both have gone back and forth and you're not in it. Now all of a sudden they realize, hey, we need to loot right away and then sprint north at one of these 2 teams who are doing scavenger routes and take our advantage there. Now all of a sudden, once they're able to execute on the game plan, it takes 1 game for them to know the fact they have to do that. It takes maybe 2 or 3 games for them to kind of actually get that going. But then all of a sudden, game 5 victory royale, and now game 6 sitting on 5 elims already and hunting for number 6. And this is the type of Benji, Lecce, and Savage that we want to see in Europe. This is the Benji, Lecce, and Savage that can be dangerous in grand finals, but they need to secure top 8, and this is the way they're going to do it.
And we woke up the monster. We poked the bear. All the mana forces out the door. They are unleashed. And they are raining terror on the lobby. Vidil, Kylie, and Fast Roki was raining terror early on. Still sitting pretty solid. Taking a look coming into this match, top 4. Usually if you kind of start the day, going into day 2, into the threshold, you tend to hold on. We are seeing a couple of trios kind of slip out of that top 8. And Kasperse and Zinni and Flixie are kind of just slipping out, but maybe they're stabilizing here. It's all about going into that momentum into day 2. You don't want to put your head on that pillow questioning yourself. You want to feel good. You want to know that the game plan that you're executing is solid. And I would say Vidil's trio is executing a great game plan, and that adjustment that Benji's trio is making, meaning they're going to have a really strong execution going forward here in the rest of the days. And now Vidil, though, now is going to have to execute a situation here, because now everyone box up as a moment to get some couple of beams here. Very dangerous situation as Vidil has the lobby to deal with, and we're taking a look here at Zone, as this is the first time in this day in Heat 1 that Stark Industries is going to make an appearance here and kind of influence how it's all going to go down.
Well, we saw a little bit. I believe it was in match number 3, but we're completely on top of it. So you didn't end up with the true Stark Industries upstate New York experience where you have that sheer drop off, the acute angle coming from the ground and building out, the Polar Peak-esque if you played back in that day where, hey, if you drop, you're just going to keep falling, and it's a long way down. You don't want to fall to that myth or that Tim damage. You know, it's taken 1 too many on its way as Link is going to tick over onto Advise there, who just got moved up onto the Wave Pro roster. Lawboom also picking up Otterworld Paco, so the aggression a little bit unhinged, and they're going to try and harpoon into it. It is Benji Fishy directly against it. We talked about it, having to do everything right in the final moments and covering your sides, and the momentum train was rolling, and just like that, the Clay Classic into the Thomas HD Special. The harpoon against a wooden wall insta-destroys it, followed up right away. You saw the tag on the wall, and Sancho is sitting here just shaking his head.
That was just plain nasty. Nasty, all capitalized. Maybe an extra couple Y's at the end of it, but Savage Lecce now have to go on without Benji as he just gets put in the highlight reel. He just gets media posted. Here comes the impressions. Oh my goodness. Thomas HD and Trio. What a big time play. As now we're seeing that the rest of the lobby is kind of not knowing what just happened. The shockwaves will soon reach your ears or your eyes when it comes to the Twitterverse or Instagrams, whatever you want to post in the social medias. But now the lobby focuses on, we're showing the dangers of a vehicle push right there, rotation. But now we're seeing Mongrel Mitro now all together have a nice metal base. We're flying over. We see Keffi's trios kind of set up here with Hardfine's trio. Kind of set up in a nice height, but Zone does not pull their way as Zone 4 goes a little bit north and more than expected.
Yeah, Exponential, Astro SMZ, and Mexi finding a little bit of room here right now. Exponential, also previously known as Hard Find. Luckily for everyone involved, again, we're going to pull away from that sheer drop-off. You can see them tightrope rocking right along the line, going to drop down onto the low ground there and continue onto these old tarps, utilizing the natural cover, just kind of break the pressure that was coming out from Micho, Mongrel, and Tayson, who are perched up in hard mats, kind of on the priority of that fourth zone. So if the moving zone ends up pulling directly towards that outer edge, they're going to have a huge advantage. And actually, excuse me, we're directly over one of those moving edges. So that fifth zone is potentially going to be very key as to dictating the pace of this endgame.
What a slick rotation, man. No builds, walking along the concave, getting the elim as soon as they get into the safe zone, but that was just slick. And there's something powerful about a good old crouch as Astro, though, goes down to some explosiveness. Most likely that was a car that caused that huge explosion, so they're going to have to retreat just on the billy goat on the side of it to hold on to that natural terrain. But I like that rotation. No doubt that's going to be the ones that the monster D-faces would love to break down, and how simple and clean that was. And those are the kind of rotations that could set you up for a great in-game, as we're seeing Tayson, Mongrel, and Mitro getting set up for a strong in-game as well.
Those are the type of rotations you need if you want to survive the horror movie. You can't be the one sprinting into the basement. You can't be the one going straight through the cornfield. No, make sure you get around the outside. Break the perimeter. Don't go into that unlit room by yourself, because you'll never know when you run into a monster like Mongrel, like Tayson, like Mitro, hanging out on the high ground, or like at the end of one of those tunnels we've seen. And boom, the priority zone for the fifth circle. You can see it in the bottom right-hand corner. Pulls directly on top of their base here. So the question is, the team across from them, can they hold them off? Who will end up winning the high ground? That's Sammy, Dennis, and Kajui right now opposite, and they're just going to build right on top of them. That's the aggression coming out from Mongrel, saying, if you want this high ground, you're going to have to take it away from me.
Right now, Mongrel, Tayson, and Mitro are king of the hill at the moment. And here are some kind of crash pads to try to overtake it. But we're seeing that what you can do is just all you have to do is pressure them and just get a couple of tags and shove them down as they go for the high play. And Sammy gets beamed by Mongrel, catching right there with some great tracking. And now, can we get a deja vu performance? It might be here, Sundown, because Mongrel, Tayson, and Mitro are looking really good. And all they have to do is just make sure that the rotations are in the front side. But once they get up there and they have shockwaves and they have the ability to kind of vault their way to the other side, I'm just saying there's no stopping this trio right now. It's just a matter of moments. Already we saw Benji go down. They're going to need somebody out of nowhere to hack these Slayers down.
And that was just an awful high ground take attempt. If you go up like that, you have to either be ready to fire the shot when you're in range, or have your builds out and be building up. But instead, Tayson actually gets ambushed a little bit and taken out, separated from the two. And that was Anas, Flick, and Thomas catching it out. And Tayson had dropped down to try and bring some heals back over to Mitro. You saw him throw the medkit away, but all of a sudden they take it away, and Flick says that's the signal to go. Shockwaves out on the height. They're challenging right away, holding forward. The W key is on, trying to get in the boxes, trying to rain them down, because they know they're able to win out from height. And this is a 3v2 and make it a 3v1 as Mitro gets the quick edit, the triangle edit from behind the box. Flick with a flick shot, taking it down. And now it's all Anas, Thomas, and Flick to ride out the rest of the game. They have high ground. They have priority on the zone. We're about into placements with our top 18 trios remaining. 46 players up in the final game of the day here in EU.
Wow, and they get all the material resources from those eliminations, looking really strong. They have the height endurance to maintain, and now it's textbook. Now it's time to beam, and they're looking so high up at the moment as Zone's going to push more towards the east coast here on Stark Island. This is going to be a strong opportunity then for also to kind of separate themselves here, considering they are the first place going into this match. They could definitely put some separation, considering they just took out Mongrel, Mitro, and Tayson, who are sitting in second place.
You can see Flick trying to figure out who's still left on the backside of the zone.
There's Mongrel.
Finally going to catch the lurker Mongrel. And most importantly, that's a big fat 0 on placement points there for Mongrel. Their trio dropping in 18th. So all of that time for no return on the investment. And they're going to be disappointed in that. But who's not disappointed? 7 eliminations right now for Flick, Thomas HD, and Anas, as they're just going to ride this high ground out. And honestly, if they don't win this game with a number of eliminations and build up on that lead, I'll be shocked. And right as I say that, Flick drops down, cleans out Freemac, and continues tarping across.
This is such a highlight game for Thomas, Anas, and Flick, already taking out the big names. They're proving to the rest of the world and us here on the broadcast booth that they are big names as well. And they're doing it in such great fashion with some nice fundamental plays. And now they're just beaming, making sure that no one comes up to them, making sure that everyone still feels the pressure. Now the elevation goes up, so all the people on the low ground are going to have to switch layers as much as possible. And that's just going to put Thomas, Anas, and Flick in a better position as we're taking a look at who else is alive, who could overcome the dominant hold of Flick, Thomas, and Nas. And I'm not seeing that much people here, Sundown, to do that.
There's no one. They effectively, they have won this game. They have to choke this game away. The question is, how many eliminations can they get? When they took high ground away before they knocked out Mitro, they had 5. Now they're already pushing into 10, stretching that lead. And also, don't forget, every single bullet they're raining down is being unanswered. The zone is pulling back. They don't even have to worry about completing their tarp. That's going to unlock Flick. He's been throwing down shockwaves to use aggressively. We have our top 10 trios, but now it's about hunting. It's about opening up that lead. It's about trying to guarantee a top 8. We're into our top 10 now here in the final game of EU, and it's all Flick, Anas, and Thomas HD as they just open up the lead, open up the floodgates, and let the points come pouring in.
And they're opening up a big can of E-limbs, going to it right here, right now. They pretty much told everybody, not so fast. We're going to have a great performance in what I labeled the Nightmare Before Grands, one of the most dangerous heats put together. So many big names, so many decorated champions here fighting here today. As Flick gets some nice tags, he's going to go ahead and retreat. But that doesn't worry, because Thomas and Anas have pretty much a strong position. And now Flick goes all the way to the front side, and he's just basically now has a moment to breathe because he's sitting in height and he can go back down. But hey, Wakey and Snappy, they're popping up in the Elim feed. Vidal popping up as well. So there's a lot of trios out there solidifying their top 8 at the same time.
Yeah, trying to just continue to rise up. And also nice getting to see Flick, you know, a little bit off the leash. Generally, it's more Thomas and Anas are going through, but he might have needed a little bit of a longer leash there as he missed Shockwave and threw himself out into the zone. So now just going to be on Thomas and Anas to clean it up. It's a 2v2 against Wakey and Snappy. They've been playing the low ground super low here in terms of HP and resources, but they have the crash pad if they want to go. It's going to be on Snappy to make a play and Wakey to just try and find and provide whatever cover he can. However, Thomas is more than a crash pad layer up. We're going to keep an eye on Anas as he's going to be the one to take the initial fight. Already sitting on 13 eliminations. Can they make it a 15 victory royale after the first one? Anas looks for the first shot, not finding it, and all of a sudden, he's down, and now Thomas, can he find the 1v2? There's the one, but he hits the bouncer that his teammate has thrown down. He has to find the Siphon. The Siphon will give him the HP lead. He has it, but the opponent turned out a shot. He doesn't have the lead. Thomas has to find a shot, and his opponent knows that. His opponent ran away, and Thomas HD and co. with the 14 elims choke the last game, in Snappy, Wakey, and Twitch. Michael, FNR are able to clutch up from the low ground and steal away match number 6.
And that was a huge game from that trio coming into this last game in 13th place, and they pop off and they do the exact same thing that Benji did, able to double up their points. So that's the kind of performance you're going to take to get you in that top 8. But we're already seeing the stories kind of unfold in front of us here, and seeing that Benji was able to get in that top 8. And this is just the close of day 1, Sundown.
That's it for day 1 coming out of EU. Don't forget, we still have day 2 tomorrow with 6 more games. We'll also have NA East after this, but that's going to be it from our casters for now. The analysts are going to wrap it up right after this. My name's Sundown.
And I am Sancho West. Woo! More, I can't wait, man, for tomorrow.
Ah, they're so adorable. You guys are great. Love you guys. Man, yeah, I mean, Sundown called it out. A little bit of a choke there. I'm not sure. I'm trying to understand why the initial bouncer came out. And it was like a weird, like, what are the chances of your teammate coming down on the same layer, happening to hit the same bouncer, just kind of causing a bunch of chaos? It is what it is, but hey, Reese, you called it out. Your boys with the most easy, recognizable names, they got themselves a victory royale.
They did. Michael keeping his name as Michael, not looking like to change it after Monster D-Face gives him a little bit of smoke on Twitter. But they're currently in 9th. Flick and Thomas HD really popped off that game. 14 eliminations in second. Obviously, they're still way ahead. I think Flick was having some internet issues, and that may be why you saw him fall down from high ground and knock himself. And then, that bouncer play where they both just flew into zone as Anas and Thomas HD. Sometimes, you know what? You make a mistake, and it just happens. You know what? Even the best, sometimes you just make a mistake.
Yeah, we're looking at the top 8 right now. Mistakes or big plays, regardless. We have an entire days of games to kind of break down after this and during this final segment. But Legend, Cartoon, and Forex, I think it was game 3 or 4, they really kind of solidified their spot. They had one very good game. They rode that wave, and right now they're locked in after day 1 in that top 8. Past that, you have to remember top 16 is what a lot of people want to hit to be eligible for that wild card match. But these guys are still fighting for that top 8. We have a whole other day of games to go. On this page, Reese, any standouts for you?
As we talked about Lolboom, Nico, and Snowda earlier, they picked up a really nice game in game 2 with 8 eliminations, 4th. But, in all honesty, I'd said at that point they were going to struggle in the early game because they'd been eliminated off spawn 2 other games. And that kind of seems to be what they've been doing. The last 2, they've kind of got a little bit of points into the placement, 10th and an 8th, but haven't really managed to make stuff up out of that. So clearly the early and mid game really needs some work.
Yeah, and today overall for Europe Heat 1, day number 1, we've kind of just seen height versus low go down every single game. Mid-ground really just gets pinched out completely. Will that theme continue in day number 2? And will Flick, Anas, and Thomas really just hold down the top spot too? Because right now they're almost 40 points ahead.
It's a very, very strong lead heading into tomorrow's games. But again, tomorrow is a different day, and it may not be their day. Or hey, as we've seen in the past, it might be their day tomorrow. We'll see. Now, really quickly, let's touch on the predictions that we made at the very beginning of EU. Let's remind everyone, Reese, kick us off.
My team, Mongrel, Metro, Tayson, be performing very, very well. They're currently in 3rd, only 3 points behind Vel, iDrop, and Stratix. But in all honesty, those 2 teams who are in the first 2 places have been doing very, very well as well. So, I'm not surprised to see them not claim that first, second slot. I'm hoping for the next 6 games tomorrow, they're going to pick up a couple more victory royales and be a little bit more consistent and just kind of start climbing that into the first place slot.
Yeah, Benji Savage Lecce, a little bit rocky coming in for the first few games, but they really brought it back, I think, in game 3 or 4 and really went towards that top 5. Now they have a solidified spot in that top 10, but I hope they hold onto it. Sundown, though, is gassed up with Flick, Anas, and Thomas HD all the way in first place, playing so phenomenally in this heat.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't know what these guys are doing because Sancho's got the second place team right now, right? We got Vettel, iDrop, and Stursix. So a lot of these trios are playing extremely well. But what's going to matter is tomorrow, those last 6 games. Can they bring it all back tomorrow? Because remember, they're going to have a day's break. They're going to be able to come back. And it's not even just them. We're talking about every other trio in the lobby, right? They're going to be able to reset their mentals, take a look at what went right, what went wrong, and adjust that. Because tomorrow with 6 games, literally anything can happen. We've seen it time and time again. We count a team out, or maybe a team is like, look, you shouldn't have forgotten about us, and they show us why. Now, before we do say goodbye to all things EU for the day, really quickly, let's touch on the other heats. Remember, it's heats 2, 3, and 4 that are going on at the same time, and I think one more game after this. Over in heat 2, we've got Floki, Clements, and Nikos. They're the only trio to break the triple-digit number.
Yep, and in Heat 2, there is also a point gap in first to second place. So these guys have a little bit of padding coming in for game number 1 tomorrow. And I would only assume that they play phenomenally to hold this spot with that Victory Royale and consistently overall with 49 eliminations.
And we saw Kinzel, CRR, and Wolfies in 5th place there, performing very well as well. They only managed to make 1 round 3, which was in qualifier 3, and they performed very well there too. So clearly, these guys are performing when it matters in these custom style lobbies.
On that last space there too is the huge tie in between all the trios. It was like a 1-point game, so that heat is very close. In Heat 3, though, Janice, Andalex, and X-Squeeze are up top with 115. The gap, though, isn't that far.
It's close. It's close. But, you know, I'm not surprised at all to see these guys on top. They took away with a victory qualifier 3, so they're clearly absolutely on fire right now.
Yeah, over here, 2 from 6th to 10th. Once again, 78 all the way to 68 points. We'll see Hen, Deciptos, and Putrick ahead of things all the way over at 6th place. But once again, things aren't looking as, you know, point gappy in Heat number 3 and Heat number 4 as well, all the way from 1st to 5th. It's looking the closest, I think, out of all the Heats we've seen so far in EU, with Flois, Andretta, and Lewis all the way there in 1st place.
And what I'm looking for out of Heat 4 is our week 1 and 2 winners, Kezix, Nate, and 4ZR. After we checked in on them before, they were not in qualification for the top 8. And are they in there now? They are still not in qualification. So after dominating the first 2 weeks, they're currently standing outside of the qualification mark. So tomorrow's a new day, 6 more games, and maybe they're going to be able to bring it back and pull up first. But, you know, 6 games starting off, our most dominant team so far, not off to a strong start in Heat 4.
Man, and this is what I was kind of touching on before. It's like sometimes that first day just isn't right, you know? Sometimes you have to kind of take a step back and just readjust something, whether that be your mentals, your drop spot, your game plans, or anything. We'll have to see if tomorrow this dominant trio can show up. But guys, that wraps up all things EU here on day number 1 of the Heats. If you're looking for more Fortnite action, stick around after the break because we'll be diving into NA East to see the first 6 games on the day. If not, we're back same place tomorrow. So till then, Fortnite fam, we'll see you on the Battle Bus.